Okay, hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining today's AIAA Los Angeles Las Vegas special event. We have a very special event today to honor the aerospace African American professionals. And we have great speakers lined up, waiting to share their story and to tell everyone what's the contribution from the aerospace African American professional community and share the experience to inspire people. It's a really truly great opportunity. So before that, we have, well, the title is wrong, but sorry, but anyway, this is the schedule for today, but some speaker might be late. So we will see how it goes. We have a panel discussion at the end. So AIAA has been having since the COVID-19, we have been doing the e-town hall meeting and special events on Saturdays. These are the upcoming events. For example, next Saturday, we have the Apollo 11 and Vikings anniversary. Actually, we have two more speakers. Initially, we have an engineer, Dr. Howard Walker. Originally, he was interested in giving a talk today, but unfortunately, they are on the trip. He's a great Apollo engineer. So hopefully we can hear from him in the future. And also today we have a sub-speaker, Mr. Shelby Jacobs. He's also a former Apollo engineer. Okay, this is our section chair, Dr. Chandrasekhar Sowane. He's a rocket scientist. He used to work in Aerojet Rocketdyne and several other companies, and he's an associate fellow of AIAA and also a fellow of American Chemical Societies. And he's also a fellow for European there's a Royal Aeronautical and Astronomical Society. Originally, he said that he will be here today, but unfortunately, I think his workload is really heavy these days. So he asked me to thank everyone and get started with the program today. So in case anything happens, try to reconnect to the Zoom, and please type your question or raise hand to be unmuted for asking the questions. A couple of words about Southern California. Some of you work in this area for before or right now. We have people working on a very exciting program like James Webb Space Telescope, Northrop Grumman for astrophysics, and then we have people working on defense, and then we have people working on people JPL expert in space debris like Dr. Taylor today. And other people in space tourism, Virgin Galactic, and SpaceX, and also in universities like USC, UCLA, Cal State Long Beach, UNLV. So if you join AIAA, you got a great benefit of networking with the professionals and the STEM resources, and you're able to know the event like today, great event out like today. And our headquarters in Reston, Virginia, and we are the local chapter based in El Segundo. And you will receive that like ARC, be able to check journals, and you have Aerospace America magazine, AIAA Foundation, Career Opportunity Industry Guide. And there are different levels, and if you look at aiaaa.org/membership, you will see all these, and we're offering 1 year free membership right now. And also educators for STEM education is also free. It's free forever, and the e-membership is 1 year. So these are some of our contact, and at the bottom you can see the e-membership link. And we have also our events coming on the aiaaa.lalv.org/events. So some of the speakers didn't provide their picture, but these are the picture of those who provided the picture. So really wish you enjoy the event today. So let me first welcome Mr. Stephen Gwine is with Northrop Grumman. He's our today's moderator, and also Dr. Christiana Tyler. She's a co-moderator for today. Okay, thank you very much. It's yours, Stephen.
All right, well, so good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Stephen Ganay. I'm a Senior Systems Engineering Manager at Northrop Grumman Space Systems, currently in El Segundo, very soon to be in Utah. So when we talk about African Americans and representation and who you see in the workforce, keep in mind that that is something that is very high on my mind right now as I get ready to transition. Um, so I'm really excited to be here today and be among this distinguished group of participants. And what I'm hoping to get out of today is that as we hear the stories, the experiences, the guidance and motivation from each of our participants, that we all learn something new, and we also learn something inspirational that not only can we use for ourselves, but that we can also share. We can share with others. We can, so that they can learn from that knowledge and learn from that experience and use it to enrich their personal and professional lives as well. So let me provide a little bit of my context around my story. If you looked at my resume, it would say I've been at Northrop Grumman for 16 years in systems engineering, and I did some systems engineering at other places as well for the previous 10 years, and I've done some consulting, and I'm an instructor, adjunct instructor at Caltech. Those are interesting, but then the real question is like, wow, how did you even get on this road, right? Because that's kind of the path, the thing that I'm always pulling on when I'm trying to entice new sharp individuals to come into the field. Sometimes holding on to sharp individuals in our companies or other companies and keep them from leaving the field, by showing them the value, the stories, and hoping that there's something that connects with them. So for me, I can trace some of my experience of why I'm even in this industry back to a day when I was 13 years old, and my mom was driving me to school, and she said, have you thought about what do you want to do with your life? And I said, well, I want to be a pilot, Mom. I want to be an astronaut, right? I was a space geek, right? I loved everything Apollo. I would read the little entries in our encyclopedia at home to really understand like how Apollo and Gemini and Mercury, how that all happened. And that was my thing. And I said, I want to be an astronaut. She said, okay, well, I think you should go to school to be an engineer. And I got real quiet and I looked at her and I said, I don't want to drive trains, Mama. I want to so, and she was like, and again, I love my mama because she's always the smartest person I know in the room. And she's like, that's not what an engineer is, right? And that started for me opening my eyes as to, is that who that is, right? That's what that does, right? But in a way, that kind of encapsulates part of this story, that the power or the lack of representation in the media, when I would watch the movies in the late 70s, early 80s, right? I didn't see enough to know, I could be that person, right? I don't know what that is. Let me find out what that is. I want to do that. That might have led me there. That's not to say there weren't any trailblazers to follow. I mean, I've always been I was a plane geek too. Back in the days, I'm dating myself, but where we could go to LAX and actually go to the gates, right, without a ticket, and I just sit there for a couple hours just watching planes take off and land. I just love planes, right? And and this is pre-internet, but I knew the story of the Tuskegee Airmen and the Red Tails and those stories, and it's like, yeah, be a pilot, and be an astronaut. There we go. That was my life's goal, right? But I didn't have enough of the pieces to put it together really until I was at the end of high school and beginning of college, where I was really I started to be exposed, right? So that role of representation, that role of helping those who aren't even aware, who are smart and sharp but not aware of what the value and the excitement of the aerospace industry has to hold, right? That's kind of part of our ongoing challenge, right? And so, I took eventually, right, like every good son, I took my mom's advice, ended up working at Northrop. And then as I got in there, well, what did I realize? I saw that kind of the lack of representation I saw on TV and the movies, I was seeing it in the workspace too, right? You end up on a team of, 20, 40, 100, and you look around and you're thinking, oh, there's me. Maybe if I'm lucky, there's one more person that looks like me. There are a couple of other people of color, right? But for the most part, they're people who don't share my experience, my reality. Now, that doesn't mean that, you can't work with other people. That was never the issue, but there are things about my reality that do have an impact on how I'm perceived in the workplace, how I was able to advance. And so what did that mean? That meant that I needed to do the other thing, which was I needed to reach out and I needed to build my networks. I need to find people to guide me. I mean, I'm very happy to see that Mike Wallace is one of the speakers today, because he was the one who took me by my hand when I came out to the B2 program, right? 2 years into my career at Northrop Grumman. So I had someone who had walked the road, who was ahead of me a little bit, to say, hey, don't do this, or look for this opportunity. Talk to those people, right? This is the way that you can become better and grow yourself in this field, in this and check out these things. Here's what's coming next. Be ready for that, so that when opportunity comes and knocks, you're not somewhere still putting on your shoes. You're standing by the door ready to open it, right? So that's another part of what I'm hoping to hear discussed today is, how are we doing that? How are we helping those who are in our industry be ready, right? Be ready and identify the new, identify the next. And I'm also hoping that we just talk about the things that make us love the industry, the things that we're working on, or our partners are working on, or we're just interested in, that are being done in the industry, that we wake up every day and you say, like, wow, look at what they're doing over there. I want to get involved in that. Or look at what they're doing over there. I applaud that. That is mind-blowing. And 2 years ago, we weren't even thinking about it, and we're doing it today, and we're already thinking about what comes next. I love to hear those stories, because that's what gets the fire in the belly for me. And I think that's what gets the fire in the belly for others as well. Because as I said earlier, part of it is getting people in. Part of it is making sure that other African Americans and people of color can just have the joy, right, that we've all experienced, right? Where, when we see the thing happen that we've worked days, weeks, months, sometimes years going, trying to accomplish. Things that began as equations and squiggles on a whiteboard, and then we find ourselves looking up and watching it fly through the atmosphere or leave the atmosphere, right? And being able to reach over and pat ourselves on the back and say, job well done, right? I want to make sure that today we're sharing those stories, but we're sharing the ups and downs, we're sharing the trap doors, right? And we're making everyone aware, so that we're all excited, we're all engaged, and we all realize that together, we all play a role in making tomorrow possible. But in order to make tomorrow possible, we need to start that hard work today, right? And so with the collective knowledge that's going to be shared today through the presenters and through the panel, I'm hoping that everyone is able to take that with them. And so with that, Ken, I'd like to kick it over to Christiana Taylor, if you wanted to say some introduction.
I was almost muted before I said something. So thank you so much for the introduction. I think that just even from our conversation before, I think I'm very excited to hear everyone's conversation coming up. So I'm Dr. Christiana Taylor. I have a PhD in Aerospace Engineering. I'll be speaking a little bit later about my own specific experiences, but I want to first say, I guess, give a few thank yous out there, because one, thank you to AIAA, thank you to Kenneth for setting up this panel, giving me and everyone else the opportunity to just kind of speak on our experiences, because I think it's really important that people hear the experiences of, people of color, Black people, women, hear them, but also normalize normalize them. So normalize that these are the experiences that they're going through. This is the, this is what a successful career looks like. But at the same time, this is all the ups and downs and how we can make it easier for others, because it's not just on, different communities to make it easy. It's on like systematic changes. So I really appreciate, one, that we have this type of panel, that we have so many people to speak on this panel, and we can actually give like those experiences. Two, my second thank you, I guess, would be shout out to all the moms. So Stefan, when you were talking about your mom, it's like, who doesn't have a mom out there that was saying like, no, baby, you can figure this out, So shout out to all the moms who may not even have, like, my mom definitely will tell me that I don't know what you do. I have no idea how to do any of that, but she knows she's proud of me, and that's all that matters. So shout out to all the moms and dads out there as well, because my dad definitely took me to museums and says like, nah, we're Team Taylor. We do all the things together. So like, I built with my dad, and my mom was the one that said, no, you will have an education to do things, and that's open doors. For me. So shout out to all the moms. I have a lot more questions for like the panel we discuss later, but like I definitely want to have the conversation about representation. I would love for us to have a conversation about how the military is really affected, like space and aircraft, and how a lot of people, for that matter, like the history of space and aircraft is the history of our military, and how that has affected and changed like not only business, but who participates and why we participate. So I think there's some really great conversations that are to be had there. I think there's the way the space and aerospace industry has changed generationally is completely different. Like so my Star Trek generation, I never really watched the original, but I have a completely different feel of like what should happen. Like I'm still in that generation that switches jobs every now and then, that thinks entrepreneurially, that thinks differently, versus my parents, we're both educators, but they stay at the same school for 20 years. So there's a different conversation happening from someone who has a 30, 40 year history in one industry compared to someone like me who was in that place to actually move from company to company and from industry to industry, and what I learned and what I've taken with me. So I'm very excited to hear those experiences. I'm very excited to hear this panel, and I think we're doing some really amazing things. I was reading everyone's bio that was provided. There's some really amazing things from like the museum project. So very excited to hear about that. And with that, I guess I'll switch it back to Stefan. Actually, first of all, am I saying that correctly? Because I think I misspelled mispronouncing Stefan, right? Stefan. All right, I'm good. So I would like to bring it back to Stefan. And I also, like I said, I have a presentation later on when I'm just kind of sharing my story. And then when we have the panel discussion, I have a lot more questions to kind of edge that conversation on as to where we're going. So I'll switch back over to Stefan. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Again, I'm really looking forward to your participation in the panel. I know that's going to be a fantastic time. Ken, I believe we're going to go to Mr. Jacobs next, correct?
I think it's Ivor.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm here, yes.
Oh, okay, perfect. Wonderful. So I'd like to now present and turn over the stage, I guess it is, the virtual stage, to Mr. Shelby Jacobs. And as I was talking earlier, right, about the not the lack of representation that I was seeing, again, as a kid in the 70s and 80s, right? It was stories like Mr. Jacobs. If I knew that he was out there, that's like, I would have pointed and said, yeah, I want to be that guy. Right, that's the kind of stuff I want to do, right? And so I'm so happy that you could join us here today and share some of your story with us and your experiences as well. So with that, let me turn the stage over to you, sir, and I'll allow you to introduce yourself and speak as you choose.
Yes, this is Shelby Jacobs here. I didn't know whether you had decided to put on one of my video clips or not, but at any rate, I'm delighted to be with you and to see such a forum at this point in time for, on behalf of Black Americans, both male and female, who've had opportunities to participate in the aerospace arena. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And my experience goes back to the 50s. I refer to quite often the Jackie Robinson phenomenon. There's one of the video there. You want to show that?
Ken, go ahead and show that video.
Okay. See if I can get it to go. It's for you. What's it about?
Shelby Jacobs was one of the legendary Apollo 11 engineers, and that's only one of his great accomplishments. He joins us once again here on Good Morning San Diego. Hey, Shelby, great to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Love the shirt.
Pleasure.
Look, you're wearing your
shirt.
I'm wearing the shirt representing what we're here for, the celebration of the 50th anniversary. That's fantastic to be able to be alive. Many of my friends didn't live to see this. Yeah. So that's a blessing in and of itself to survive, to be a part of this celebration.
Talk to us about what it was like leading up to the event, leading up to the moon landing. What was the mood around NASA like with you and your fellow engineers?
I actually work for a NASA contractor, okay. Rockwell, but the mood in my area was a continuum of activity for many, many years. I started working on rocket propulsions in the mid-50s, long before the Apollo was even committed or the Saturn program.
Wow.
So this was an evolution of a long series of activities for me. The culmination of it was Apollo 11. Mm-hmm. I had been working on Apollos from 1 through 17, and the propulsion system that provided the power to get into space. That was my specialty. The camera system was a unique exception to what I normally did, mm-hmm. and it's that occurred actually on Apollo 6. It was one of the 2 flights which occurred on the same day that Martin Luther King was assassinated, April the 4th, 1968. So my career had a parallel professional component and a social component of civil advantages that I was getting. Sure. To the point where I mentioned them when I did the work that I'm known for in Downey, and now I have an exhibit there. I could not live in Downey until fairly recently. Mm-hmm. So I was afflicted with a dual career in terms of demonstrating that I could do this while our social environment was kind of bringing up the rear.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't an easy work environment, clearly.
It was a difficult environment because I was literally taking the job of an Anglo for all my career. Mm-hmm. Every job I had not been done by a black before, so they were unaccustomed to people doing those roles. I mean, sweeping the floor and taking out the trash, they understood that.
Right.
Yeah. But that was unique, and that was the burden of a pioneer. You carry those things with you. Sure. You cannot just throw that off and ignore it, mm-hmm. right? Because it'll smack you in the face and it can do harm to you if you're not aware. But to insulate yourself from the impact of those kinds of things was part of my. So this was a culmination and the confirmation of all that had gone on prior. Yeah. And my career went on some 25 years after that on the shuttle program.
Mr. Jacobs, I wanted to ask you, so you are a rocket scientist back in the day, involved specifically in the Apollo 11 program. Now, as you mentioned, I want you to explain to San Diegans the camera system that you were involved in that was so instrumental in Apollo 11, and how that today, that alone made history. The images. Yes, talk to us about that.
Yes, it did. And the issue we had with that was that NASA had tasked Rockwell and a team of engineers to do analysis and tests. We had been doing analysis and tests for a couple of years to prove that the stages of the vehicle would separate without imploding, because they were being subjected to an environment beyond which they were originally built. So this is the Apollo shuttle on Saturn was the most powerful vehicle ever built. So we had to make sure the camera would survive the environment in order to take the film. So we had years to prove that, and finally NASA in essence said to us, "Show me." And so we put the cameras in to show and to confirm the separation system was a viable system. Mm-hmm. And that took place a year or so before we committed to Apollo 11.
So we knew it worked, and the image, for the first time, the whole world saw the curvature of the Earth.
That's correct. We had never flown that high and taken pictures, even though that was not our primary purpose. That was a byproduct of proving that separation took place, was to see the Earth curvature. And that is what made it iconic. And of all the things I did in 40 years, it survived to be the most significant thing that I ever did. And I would have disagreed with that if you'd asked me what I should identify as my career. Well, the film itself became iconic.
It's amazing.
And it had a life of its own, and so I adapted to that rather than other things.
And Shelby, in the short time that we have left, talk to us about what it was like for you to watch them set foot on the moon after all of those years of hard work. And you were a part of that. What was it like for you to watch that?
It was just euphoria. I mean, I was really excited. I didn't get a chance to see it in real time because it happened on back east, and but it was the culmination of a series of events that finally said you could have a sigh of a moment of just can't even express it.
Yeah.
But that was like just the beginning for me. My career, 30 years beyond that,
sure,
I was still going. So it was a highlight that demonstrated that yes, it can be done. I can do it. Other people of color and women can do it. That's what it meant to me, which was much more significant than the event itself.
Wow.
Yeah, you are a true pioneer. That is
a hero.
Absolutely,
for sure.
Shelby.
I'm glad to wear that
and we are so glad that you are a San Diego. I mean, for us, that's even, you live here in the North County area with your family, your lovely wife behind the cameras right now.
Well, that's great. I retired here by choice. Prior to that, I couldn't choose where I lived.
That's right. That's right. All right, Shelby Jacobs, thank you so much. Great to see you again.
Thank you very much.
God bless.
It's my pleasure.
Are you there?
Cool. Very cool.
Yes.
Shelby Jacobs was one of the legendary Apollo 11 engineers, and that's only one.
Okay, that's the end of that. Are we back on?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to express my gratitude for the fact that we are now able to share with people the involvement of blacks and minorities. Back in the day, we were literally hidden figures. And based on high tech, I've been able to share this in the past few years because I can tune in and show people rather than debate the value of my career with people who tend not to want to believe it.
Right. Hey, Shelby, that's awesome, man. I'm also in San Diego, and I'm very inspired by what you've done, and I'll share this with everybody I know, and I'm really happy to see that. So I have some other things to say, but I'll say them later.
Yeah, I think I talk to young people often and try to help them appreciate the fact that we have examples all the way to the White House of involvement. And back in the day, we had none, and to appreciate and take advantage of those opportunities and to be all you can be to develop marketable skills so they can do a lot of things.
Yeah, and as everybody knows, it's a huge farce and a lie that nobody of any race has ever done anything big. For every race on Earth, in all time, there's one person from any and every race that have done something great. It's really that simple. So it's kind of a made up stuff of capabilities of people. I mean, you take somebody from some island that's some other place. I mean, they're just as good as anybody else. In fact, one of my colleagues mentioned, PhD from Princeton, he says, everybody has brains, and so you should never underestimate anyone. And so the lack of progress really is stymied by, institutional racism, which has a very interesting definition. If you look it up on Wikipedia, it really gets down to it. And so, the limit of our minds is the universe. It's not, and the universe doesn't have any limit as much as people think they do. It does, yeah. Every now and again, these scientists, they say, oh yeah, there's X amount of finite atoms in the universe or this. I was like, come on. every time people make a statement of facts, which they really have no business knowing at all, they are superseding something that's greater than them. And you really have to, put them on a spot there because, this, whatever time space we live in, it's infinite. It literally is. And so are our minds. And you can imagine yourself on the moon right now, Shelby.
Yes.
In an instant, right?
That's right.
And you can imagine yourself a million parsecs away from the moon in another instant. So there's something up there that's way much more glorious than we imagine, and it connects to us through our mind. And so
one of the things back in the day that our parents bought into the idea of inferiority, and so kids were kind of told to stay in your place. So
yeah,
as we come forward,
yeah, there's nobody on earth that could stop the progress.
I've always been looking for my place. So I never accepted the fact that I had a limited role. Yeah. However, a lot of people that I knew back in the day, they bought into that and they did just what they were allowed to do. They never pushed the envelope to see what else they could do.
Yeah, people have been just about everything. Everybody's been everything. I mean, the wealthiest man in the world existed from Africa,
That's right.
Mafu Musa, So the thing is, in our present day lives, we just have to combat the stereotype, and it's kind of disappointing and annoying at the same time, because we have this constitution and everybody's been given these inalienable rights, but we always have to be looking behind our backs, because while everybody else can proceed, we're constantly purposely being stopped. I mean, I'll tell you this, if the government of the United States, they wanted to make amends with people with regard to minorities, one of the things that would have been momentous would be to name the Dragon's capsule, and I've met Musk and dealt with him before, to name it the USS Floyd, right? So the moment when all this George Floyd stuff was going on, right? Just name the darn thing USS Floyd. That would have been a really good directive to where we want to be and need to be as a nation, right? Just think about that.
Lindsay,
So,
anyway. I don't want to interrupt. It's a great conversation.
Oh, no.
I know we have presentations for everyone, and I wanted to give Mr. Shelby a time to finish his, and then we can always.
Thank you, Mr. Shelby.
We can always absolutely come back. Like, trust me, I'm super inspired as well. So I really want to hear his, and I know we have like a schedule, but like I definitely want to. We can definitely bring it back up on the panel. So.
Yeah, so I just wanted to underscore the fact that as we were overcoming, the further back you go, the more we had to overcome. And I just shared with somebody just recently, I was a hurdler in school, and I learned to overcome obstacles in life the same way. Do not complain about the fact that the obstacles are there, but find a way around them. And that's kind of the story of my career, to focus on what you can do and not be concerned about what you can't do or don't buy into it. If you say you think you can't, you're right, you probably can't. So I encourage people to have a positive attitude, to develop their own courage, self-esteem. Don't let anybody tell you what you can't do. You try, put forth the effort to understand and learn, and you'll find out you can do a lot more than people would think you can, and even you can imagine yourself. And that's the story of my life, to dare dream the impossible dream, and to live to see it materialize, and to be able to share with people that it can be done, and particularly in terms of minorities and women. And I applaud the things that are going on now that suggest that more people are aware of that, and I'm just proud to be a part of, and that this acknowledgement for Blacks and women in all the professional areas. And I just think it's wonderful to be able to share this with the younger generation, so that they are aware in real time, not after the fact. That's I don't want to take up much of your time, but I just wanted to thank you for allowing me to be a part of this presentation.
Oh, yeah. Trust me, you're not taking up our time, sir. We're honored that you could spend some time with us. Let's if we can have a bit of your time. What, in your career, you've had many opportunities to go from being the one person of color in the room to maybe two, right? Sometimes more. What were some of the nuggets of wisdom and guidance that you you know, you reached out and said to those people who were joining you as you got later in your career, and of course, society was changing around you at the time as well. But what are some of those things that you were sharing that we might still, you know, want to share with those who are coming into this industry or we're trying to retain in this industry as well?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I like to tell people, one of my favorite numbers is close to zero. My entire life and my career was in an environment close to zero where there weren't many people that looked like myself. And as our numbers overall as Blacks in this country, we're only about 13% of the population. So if we were all to get involved, there would be still possibilities that we would be in, and to be successful, you would be out among people that didn't look like you. So I try to help people become comfortable or stretch their comfort zone, that it's sometimes almost a symbol of success that you don't see people that look like you, because just the numbers alone would not permit us to have large numbers of Blacks in many places from the White House down. A lot of times young people, you grow up with your family and your friends. I've even seen people, first time I went to apply for an application for a job, there were 5 or 6 people. We went in groups. Only one was applying, but we were in a group. So one of the things that I find and try to encourage people to understand, you have to be able to push the envelope, expand your comfort zone, so that when you encounter numbers that are close to zero, you have to bring your comfort with you in case you don't find it there. Your comfort lies within your own self-confidence. You know what you know, and you know your capability better than anyone who may be looking at you. So we have to help young people understand that self-confidence is not a democratic process. By virtue of the fact that self is the preface, it is your job and your job alone to develop your self-esteem, self-confidence based on what you do early in life to demonstrate to yourself that you have value. So between that and being willing to be out, push the envelope and get beyond your comfort zone is truly one of the things I think for young people to understand. To be successful, you have to be willing to expand beyond your comfort zone and deal with people, even though they doubt. That is, it's not your job to doubt. You have enough doubters. If you join the doubters, you're doomed to failure.
Well, thank you. That was, I actually wrote that one down. Thank you. That was powerful. That was powerful. And, not to rush you off the stage. Anything else you'd like to share with us today?
I just want to share the enthusiasm that I see now with our future, in spite of the chaos that we have in this time of all the things going on around us. I still see and remain optimistic that things will be improved, will continue to improve. And life is not a continuum. Things go up and down. Sometimes it's 2 steps forward and 1 back or 3 back, but we're moving forward. So I encourage people to remain optimistic and keep the faith. God is good, and we are going to survive and do well.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that, sir. And thank you for being able to spend some time with us today. And I with all the emails, I can't remember if you're going to be able to hang on with us for the panel or not. But if you can, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I will hang on. I will keep this in my hand as I go around. I'll hang on for.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
I'll be standing by.
All right. Okay. So with that segue, so great. Let me now turn the stage over to Dr. Taylor. Dr. Taylor, welcome.
Sure. So thank you everyone for having me. I didn't do slides or anything. One of my superpowers is that I'm a really good speaker and storyteller. So what I wanted to do was just kind of talk about my experience in space and aircraft and what was important to me. So things to know about me. 1, I'm from Chicago. So as we were saying before, I didn't have a NASA center. I was 3 and a half when Halley's Comet came through. And my mom said, come outside and see this. And I was like, whatever, mom, I'm just being 3 and being difficult. But I went outside and it was like this amazing thing. And then I learned in school that like only the smartest people can be in space. Only the smartest people can work for NASA. And I'm like, yeah, I'm the smartest, so I'm gonna work for NASA, right? So that's what like set me on this journey of wanting to work in aerospace, wanting to work in STEM and whatnot. So for me, it was, oh, okay, that's cool, I can do it. But you know, I just listened to the last 2 ones. So first of all, Mr. Ivory, like it's so amazing. I'm like, oh my God, as an adult, can I come to this museum? Like that sounds like so much fun. Like I never got to go to space camp, and I never got to even see a NASA center until I was in graduate school. I didn't meet a Black professor until I was in graduate school. I didn't meet a Black woman until I was in graduate school that was like in my field. So like for me, it was like, all right, I can do this, I'm gonna do it, but I know I'm gonna do it alone. And that's fine, but there's so much comfort to even seeing like this panel and seeing and hearing everyone else's experience of, wow, you did that. And you may have done it alone, but I appreciate you doing it before me so that way I can be here and do something else for other people. So for me, again, it's like, what's that access look like? So I went to undergrad in Boston University. There was an aerospace program, but it was all aircraft. So my undergrad was doing aircraft engines. I worked for GE Transportation, and I'm definitely a touch and feel person. So like, you know, we got these $1 million aircraft, so I'm trying to spin them real fast, and they're like, don't touch that because that's going on your aircraft. But to me, I'm like, well, that's the whole point, right? If it can't handle, I was, you know, what, 19 at the time, but if it can't handle a 19-year-old spinning this engine, what is it going to do when it's like up, like up in the sky? Like, okay, but you know, whatever. I understand their point. They cost more than me, period. But from there, I went to Georgia Tech. So I got my PhD in aerospace engineering. So I did system engineering and technology integration. So what my interests are have always been, how does technology propagate? So the technology you do today, what does that look like for the programs tomorrow? And again, one, my superpowers are speaking, the other superpower is dreaming. So I'm the type of person that's really big strategy. I'm the type of person that can see A to triple Z. I struggle with A to B because I want someone else to do that, delegate that away. But I can absolutely understand and imagine like those bigger worlds. So, you know, big important parts of my graduate school career was, one, I got to JPL. So I finally got to NASA, y'all. I still have my NASA badges and they never getting them back. I was so proud to finally be able to go to NASA and finally be able to go to conferences and meet all these people. And I'm just like, wow, whoa. And it's like, you know, just meeting people that like worked on these programs. Like Mr. Shelby, it was so amazing hearing from you and hearing about, you know, your work on the Apollo system. But you get to LA, again, from Chicago, by way of Boston, Atlanta, you get to LA, and it's like there's so much history in Southern California when it comes to the space program. So like I hear these names now and it's like, oh, well, of course that person did this. And of course. And I tell you, I never heard of any of these people. You know, I knew Mae Jemison. I knew Carl McNair. Like I knew McNair's name. I barely knew Charlie Bolden's name. So like, there's this concept of access. Like Chicago is known for physicists. You know, we've got the big accelerators there. Like we're known for physicists. We're known for like MBAs and services. We are not known for space. Like Boeing moved there a little while ago, but even then that was like after I had left for undergrad. So there's this concept of access, and like if I had a traveling space museum, I assure you I'd probably be like your #1 intern every summer. You know, if I had access to, you know, like these heroes and it's like, wow, you did that, can you like show me? And like I was always an inquisitive kid. Like I could talk my way into anything. Like I assure you, every one of you, I'm like, oh, hey, you work for Raytheon? What is that like? Can you show me something? Like I'm the type of person, I will talk my way into anything because that's the only way you get to see things. And then I meet someone that is African-American, that is a woman, that for that matter says yes to doing these programs, says yes to talking to students, says yes to, you know, saying, yeah, of course, I'll help you with that program, that project, that initiative. And quite frankly, I learned to ask a lot, and I got very lucky that there was a lot of yeses in my life. So working at JPL as a student intern, I worked on the Hesperi project where I was looking at hyperspectral imaging. Working at JPL for my thesis work, again, I was doing technology portfolio and technology integration. From there, I couldn't find a job, which is ironic because I did all this work and, you know, so I'm 37 and I graduated my PhD in 2011. So we had just went through the housing crisis. We just went through, NASA was the first time they were like furloughing people, and like JPL had like started like losing people from their programs. And I'm looking up like, what do you mean I can't go work for NASA? This is literally my job. Like, this is what I wanted to do with my life. So it wasn't a thing of, you know, it was just timing, like absolute timing for me. So I looked up and NASA wasn't hiring me. And I was just like, I don't understand what's going on right now. So I did what anyone did. I made a way for myself. So I got into entrepreneurship. I got into the Kauffman Foundation and learned basically the business side, which is where I then went to Microcosm, which is a small company in, I guess they're in Torrance right now, but when I was there, we were in Hawthorne with Dr. Jim Wirtz, who basically wrote, you know, the spacecraft, like system engineering book. Amazing, amazing man, to this day a mentor, and like I truly respect and appreciate him because one, he showed me who I wanted to be. He showed me how business leaders working in space, how you can be both business as well as technical. He showed me how being kind worked, because I think that, and I want to bring this up in the panel, but I think there's this conversation in STEM that we're all kind of jerks, or we work by ourselves, or we think that we're better than you, or we only speak in math equations, which is ridiculous. But here I am working under him, you know, helping edit, you know, the space engineering books, being like sitting in on these calls when it comes to like the military versus NASA versus all these programs, learning so much. And it's like, that's the type of leader I wanted to be. And Dr. Wirtz, you know, he's a Caucasian man, he's very kind, but it just is one of the many times that like my mentors and the people that I look up to did not look like me and still gave me so much that I can give to other people. So that's, you know, a really big part of who I am. I guess the other part of my story that I wanted to do was astronauts. So astronauts in space has always been my plan. Again, I wanted to be an astronaut since I was little. I applied for the last three times. So I'm still waiting to hear if we get this one. So, you know, NASA, if you're listening, pick me. But I have some funny stories when it comes to meeting astronauts. So first, with Dr. Yvonne Cagle, I'm part of NSBE Space 6, so National Society of Black Engineers Space Special Interest Group. So that's where I first really met like a lot of like Black space professionals. And I was in graduate school, I was like, whoa, there's so many. I'm like, yes, it's gonna be different than graduate school. So excited. But I'm at a NSBE Space conference and I'm up with just my friends, because again, it's like, oh, wow, I have friends that are Black in space and we're hanging out, just talking and hanging out, not talking about anything technical or whatever. And there's a woman that's there and she overhears us and, you know, she clearly wanted to talk to us, but it's just like, again, I didn't know her or whatever. And then I find out that it's Dr. Cagle and she says, I would have loved to come hang out with you. And like my head is blown that an astronaut wants to hang out with me. Like, what? I was like, please always come talk to me. But it was one of those like surreal moments when you learn how astronauts are just like you know, like we have like celebrities and like they're just like me and they're, you know, they get their coffee and they do this and they have paparazzi and whatnot. But like in my head, I'm like, oh, wow. So you want to hang out too. Like you want to go do interesting things. But I just appreciate that so much that like, you know, she wasn't I don't think she was the first astronaut I met, but she was definitely one of the first like Black women I've met. And it was one of those moments where you realize that like, you don't have to be what you, like your stereotype of what you think an astronaut is. You just have to be talented enough. I'm sorry, I won't say that. That's not the right way to put it, because there's a lot of systematic things that happen when it comes to being chosen for astronauts, for anything for that matter. But on some level it's luck, on the other level it's skill. So you always make sure your skill level is ready so that when luck happens to you, you have the option and you have the experience to be a part of it. My other experience was with Mae Jemison. So I I'm from Chicago, from the south side of Chicago. She went to Whitney Young. I went to Kenwood. It's like literally a high school rivalry, which I don't care, but it's one of those moments like, dang it. Like I wish she was at Kenwood instead. So I would go down for the very last space shuttle launch. Again, I'm from Chicago. I've never seen a shuttle launch. I don't have access to shuttle launches. We don't launch shuttles in Chicago. We don't launch rockets in Chicago. So I go down there and I go down there for the launch the first time. And then the second time I go down there for the 100-year Starship program. And I just, I get in my car and I go and I'm a student and I'm poor and like I have no money for a hotel. So I'm like praying to God they do not like extend the shuttle launch. Because again, I'm a student. I'm like, I will sleep in my car if I have to, but I don't know these things. So gratefully it went out without a hitch. But nonetheless, the second time I'm down there for a shuttle launch, she's there. And I'm just like, okay, don't act weird. Don't be weird, don't be crazy, don't be anything. And I'm like telling myself this the whole time. And she was just so nice. And I tell everyone how like, I'm just like, the whole time I was screaming myself, please don't be weird, please don't be weird. And she winds up like doing this program to like take everyone to the movies. And she took me to dinner afterwards for no other reason other than the fact that she wanted to. But like, again, I'll say I'm 26 at the time or so. Still a poor student because I'm in graduate school. They don't, contrary to what they tell you, we are not rich as graduate students. So I'm having dinner with Mae Jemison and I'm just trying to like pinch myself and again, not say anything stupid. And of course I say the stupidest thing you could possibly imagine. I asked this woman if she remembered what it felt like to be on a shuttle. That is the dumbest question you could possibly ask an astronaut. And I meant it, but like it's the only thing I could ask or think of. But the point is that one, she laughed it off and still made me feel comfortable enough to spend time with her. Two, it was again that moment where your idols are normal. Your idols, not only are they normal, they're regular human beings. We had a whole laughing conversation about music and exercise. I don't remember the whole conversation, but we were talking about how different music makes you move differently. So we were talking about like what music were you thinking about like when you're on the shuttle and like what those experiences were. But one, they were normal people. So that was one of those experiences for me. And three, I met Mae Jemison, y'all. I literally found her. I literally followed this woman to the bathroom so I could finally tell her, thank you so much for being who you are, because I wanted to be an astronaut just like you. And I'm just like thinking to myself, I told you not be weird, but I didn't care. She had to know. And like, I've been lucky enough to like meet her other times since then. But like the first time it was just like, oh my God, like, I don't think we get a chance to idolize or like, for that matter, give respect where it's due to like the juggernauts in our field. And Mr. Shelby had a comment, he said the burdens of being a pioneer. I think that burden is probably that you have people like me that will follow you everywhere and say, hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate you because like you made me want to do this. So those are my big stories. Me personally, the work that I do a few things. So one, with space, I have a startup called Intelligent Space. So again, my background is in system engineering. I work on artificial intelligence. So when I was doing it in graduate school, it was just optimization. Like that's literally all it was. When I did it for my thesis work, it was a type of optimization, but again, it was to give you your technology portfolios and then have better statistics and better gut feelings, quite frankly, of what technology you want to integrate. So I specifically look at an intelligent space, how can you apply artificial intelligence to orbital debris? So to give you a sense of that, for every satellite you have up and running right now, you have 3 non-working satellites because we've been launching since forever. So the biggest cost of launching a satellite is launch. Sorry, the biggest cost of a satellite is its launch. So that is the largest cost, just period. So you spend 20 years working on something to launch it, and then to have a dead satellite hit it, you're gonna feel some sort of way. So what my concept and the work I personally work on is on the AI side of what can we actually do with dead satellites that are in space? Because one, they're already launched, so they don't cost you anything for the raw materials. Two, you're basically doing a recycling reuse case of, think of it as having a, what's the word? A car shop in space. Like, what does satellite servicing look like? So that's what I really focus on. And then three, because my background is technology portfolio and is technology integration, I look at the manufacturing processes that it would take to dismantle a satellite and repair something in space based on what's already up there. It's a really interesting problem because one, there's the technical side, which, you know, I have a PhD. You give me a problem, I can figure it out. Here's my ideas. Like, this is what you do. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Boom. There is a leadership side of, okay, who do you talk to do this? And then there's a policy side, because quite frankly, there's, there's 5 major treaties in space, and 3 of them pretty much comes down to don't touch my toys. Literally, of the 5, 3 are literally don't touch my toys. One is if another country's satellite astronauts are in trouble, another country, we will come help you. Another, okay, the moon doesn't belong to anybody, although there's another conversation when it comes to mining. The other 3, don't touch my toys. That's literally all space is. It's about property and maintenance. So even trying to have the conversation of satellite servicing, of satellite manufacturing in space that's from like current satellites, is a long conversation as to how can I touch your toys and whose toys can I touch? Like, that is a very long conversation on the policy side, which, as someone who thought they'd be a professor working with their own lab in a dungeon with a whole bunch of graduate students that would just kind of hang out and we have annual picnics, I was not prepared for. And my career has been very interesting because I've switched over to doing the management leadership side, and being able to, one, communicate technology is interesting as well as important, because apparently a lot of people can't communicate technology cannot communicate technology easily. And I say that in the sense that there are people that want to be in their dungeon with no light and they will come out with the problem solved, which is great. And they unfortunately cannot communicate it the same way that, like a Bill Nye the Science Guy or a Mythbusters can communicate it. So it's easy for public consumption. And that's something I'm really, really good at, ironically enough. So I've switched over in my career to looking at, okay, how can I keep my technical skills up as well as keeping that leadership policy side up, because that's what it's going to take when it comes to the manufacturing side of space. And also when it comes to the technology integration, because we hear AI, so I live in Oakland now, right? I live up in Oakland, I work in SF. We hear AI and you still might think of the Terminator, you might think Skynet, you might think so many different things when you hear the word AI. It's a buzzword up here. You sprinkle AI on things and all of a sudden you get funding for absolutely nothing. So translating what AI really is, that it really is making a decision. That's literally all AI is, and it has statistical analysis behind that decision and you learn from it, has been very eye-opening for me, because it allows me to easily break it down for people, and then it allows me to easily explain, this is step 1. Step 1 is what's up there. Step 2 is like, okay, of what's up there, what can we possibly build? Step 3, okay, of what's up there and we can possibly build, who can we, who wants to talk to each other? Raytheon, will you talk to Lockheed Martin about this? Okay, you won't, that's cool. All right, Raytheon, will you talk to Boeing about this? You won't, okay, that's cool. Raytheon, will you talk to Raytheon about this? Okay, that's the steps we take. So that's kind of the background, that like I'm coming from when it comes to like my space work. And then I've just been very blessed to be able to move within circles when it comes to, on one hand, meeting famous people, on the other hand, having like these amazing experiences and being a part of panels like this where we can actually normalize the experience of what African Americans are doing, African American and women for that matter are contributing, and being able to normalize that and be able to see that and show that visibility. So with that, I'd like to open up to any questions. I haven't been checking the chat room, but if not, then I know we have a schedule.
So actually, I have a question, but I'm going to bring it back during the panel because you brought up some really great things that I want to touch on. So I'll loop those back in the panel discussion.
Mhm.
So thank you, Dr. Taylor. We will now go to Tyrone.
Hello. Hi, everybody. You guys see me? You guys hear me? Can you guys see me?
Yes, Tyrone, we can hear you. We can see you.
All right. Now, first and foremost, thank you guys for having me on today. I really appreciate the opportunity to just share a little bit about myself and like how I got into aerospace and engineering and everything. This journey for me started in 2008. So I was a freshman in high school at that point. And before then, I didn't really know if I wanted to be an engineer yet. I just got the brochure in the mail. And I figured that it would be a great opportunity to kind of go to a school that was quote unquote different. And what I mean by different is the school, it taught us engineering curriculum on top of, your standard social studies and English and mathematics. And so I figured I would go there and check it out. And by making that decision, I want to say it was my junior year. I had a class called digital electronics. I really enjoyed the class. It went really well. I learned a lot and I vibed really well with the teacher. And he had his degree in electrical engineering at the time from the University of Cincinnati. And that kind of pushed me to kind of just tell myself at that point, like, okay, you can do this engineering thing, like you can try it out and just see what happens. And then, pretty much from that point of making the decision to take up engineering in college, I did that. I went to the University of Toledo, which is in Ohio. It took me 5 years to get my degree. It would have took maybe 4.5. But I switched my major as a freshman. I came in as a freshman. I was doing computer science at first. And I'm like, I don't know if I really like all this coding, programming stuff so much. And so I figured I would just do electrical after that because that was like the closest, I guess, major to computer science. And a lot of the classes kind of blend together and they kind of relate to each other in a way. So I took up electrical engineering in undergrad, University of Toledo, and then through my various internships at companies like I've had multiple, experiences in engineering. I was able to land a full-time job before I graduated college, and that brought me out here to LA, to California, to begin my engineering career. And I haven't really turned back since. And I think a lot of the things that I've kind of learned on this journey is to, always, shake hands with people, treat people with respect. You never know who you will meet out there on your journey. You never know what doors can be open. You never know, who knows who or who knows what. Exposure is key. Exposure is a big deal. And that's also a big reason as to why I am where I am right now. And I think just by carrying those different things in my mindset daily has gotten me to where I am and will push me even further to reach, even further heights. And, I'm heavily involved in NSBE as well, which is the National Society of Black Engineers, that I think a lot of you may know of or have been a part of and everything. So, I've been a part of NSBE for, let's see here, maybe 7 years now, 7.5 years now, going on 8. And I've had various leadership and experiences within NSBE as well. And NSBE has taught me a lot about just myself and leadership, like what that looks like and how to, be on a team, how to work with a team, how to work with, different people of different like personality types and backgrounds and, just kind of seeing how we can mesh together and, attack the common goal and go after the common mission. So even with NSBE, that's taught me a lot on top of just my own experiences within STEM and engineering. And I love working with kids. So I work with kids a lot. I public speak to kids, children, middle schoolers, high schoolers, and even college students. Now I'm really, really passionate about speaking. And I'm currently, building my speaking brand on the side as well. So I think just NSBE, speaking, my engineering internships and networking, going to conferences and seminars, all these different things has really helped me become who I am today. And it's really helped me understand a lot about just, the corporate world, business, networking, having, different types of conversations out there, never really knowing who you can meet and what they can do and what you can do for them and how you guys can collab and different things like that. So, and by the way, I know there's some of you here who I believe work for Northrop Grumman. I will be starting at Northrop on the 27th, so I look forward to meeting some of you who currently work there that are on the call today. So I figured I would announce that to you guys as well. But that's kind of a little synopsis on myself and kind of how I got to where I am and what my interests are and where they lay and what I want to do in the future. So feel free to ask me any questions, or if you guys are interested in anything, just feel free to ask.
So thank you for that, Tyrone. So two things. Number one, I think everybody on the call wants a copy of that T-shirt you're wearing. So if you could just drop it in the mail right now, wherever you're going, just drop that in the mail because we all want one.
The T-shirt is really cool. It was developed by a speaker named Eric Thomas. It's his company's T-shirt. So he developed that with his team. So I don't know if he's selling them right now, but if I find like a copy of it, I'll be sure to get it out to you guys.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'd all like that link. I mean, a matter of fact, there's some youngsters we'd like to probably share that with. So and keeping that back. So the next part is, right, since you're closer to the beginning of your career than a lot of them, right? So, and you think about the road that you traveled, say, let me just pick it up, the story up in middle school, high school to where you are now. There were people on the path with you who got off, right?
Yeah.
So what are the things that, that we could be, that you think we could be doing as mid-career senior professionals, retired professionals, to help keep people on that path early, right? That let's just say from middle school through, entry into the workforce, or through college where you are now.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I would say exposure is where we have to start. So this is why I got into NESB, over 8 years ago. You have to expose the kids to a bigger world, bigger possibilities. A lot of kids, especially that grow up in certain environments in certain places, they really only think that they can become just an athlete or a rapper or entertainer. And that's kind of a lot of their mindsets is just, okay, I'm gonna go to the NBA or I'm gonna be a rapper. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with wanting those aspirations for yourself. But for me, it's like, okay, let's try to open their minds up to becoming a scientist, a chemist, get your doctorate degree, become an astronautical engineer, aerospace engineer. I've been very passionate about showing kids like just a lot of different things that you can do in the world. And it's not just limited to just sports or entertainment or rapping. So we got to expose the kids to that stuff first early on. And we have to put the kids in environments that constantly fosters and reinforces those principles and those mindsets. So to keep kids kind of going on the path and starting in the path and keeping them just going for it and not deterring or going somewhere else or going left is just, you really have to just continue to show them that they can accomplish it, they can do it. Someone that looks like them can do it. Someone that had the same background and the same upbringing as them can do it. And you have to show them that, their dreams are also possible, their goals are possible. And you have to show them that, just working hard and networking and doing the right thing and trying to be the best person that you can be, can get you to where you want to get to one day. I know for me, like I said, with my high school, I didn't even know that high school existed until my uncle showed me the brochure, and then my mom, she got it, and then they were just like, hey, we should send him here. And that was my exposure right there. If that would have never happened, I don't really know where I would be at right now exactly. I'm not saying I wouldn't still be somewhere or be somewhere of success, but ever since that day, I never looked back. So that's kind of like my starting point. So you have to expose the kids to greater possibilities and greater dreams and greater goals. And once they see someone that looks like them doing what they think is quote unquote impossible, that does so much, and that would do so much. So I would just say exposure is key.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for that, and thank you for sharing your experience with us today.
Definitely.
I want to be cognizant of your time commitment and then also your personal safety, since I see you wheeling down the road there.
Yeah.
Anybody, we know what's going on, but
Definitely.
so I want to thank you for your participation. I don't know how much longer you can hang on and at least listen. Maybe
Oh, yeah, I'll be here.
participate in some of the panel when we get to that. But if you have to drop off, we totally understand. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
And I'll be looking for you at Northrop.
All right, definitely, man. Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna now move on to Dr. Quarry.
Hi everyone. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for having this, Ken. Last time I was on an AIAA program, I almost got booted off because I introduced the Gargle challenge, and people just to demonstrate that the upper respiratory tract infections just can be dealt with even just by using water to gargle, you know. And so a lot of people understood what I was saying and had a light moment with it. I mean, you could add salt water, you could add you know, a little bit of hydrogen peroxide, but you know, dealing with the coronavirus situation. So anyway, there's published information out there. 400 people, you know, water alone can help with the gargle without preventing upper respiratory tract infection during the day. But anyway, we had some fun last time. It was a light evening. But anyway, you know, RAP is actually a tool, and it communicates a lot faster than many others. And in fact, I'm an electrical and computer engineer and a PhD in materials engineering. And I've been to a lot of pitches in San Diego for inventions of mine and things that I've been doing. And I found out, I decided to basically change things up with a wrap on one of my products. And it was quite fun and interesting. But anyway, it starts like this. Yes, you could trust me. I'm not boring. Put your dot on phrases if you ought to be scoring. You've been hacked, that's a fact. You have to pay a ransom or you won't get your money back. Cyber warfare, loose nukes, so out of control makes you want to puke. Come with me into an IPO because phrases is the way to go. So anyway, so anyway, in giving a pitch, I introduced that, and it's kind of interesting the audience reaction. So what I'm talking about there actually is worth 155.1 million. It's a very deep technology, and it defends against intrusion from you know, smartphone, tablets, laptops, and so we're in a phase 3 research and development program on that one. So that's a lot of fun. But I just thought I would mix it up. The value of your history and heritage can be put to use in a very different way. You know, with RAP, you can communicate words a lot faster and with more impact than just regular English. So don't people should never forget their roots and their culture in that regard. So anyway, investors kind of like that. Anyway, so my background, I saw the space shuttle blow up, the Challenger, way back in time. When I was in my physics lab, and I was you know, pretty distraught by it. And I thought, geez, we've got to do things better and make space travel a lot easier and, you know, less risky. And so, you know, I completed my bachelor's in electrical and computing engineering at the University of Miami, like within 3 years, then did my master's in electrical and computer engineering at Drexel. Actually, my bachelor's in physics and electrical engineering. And then, you know, PhD in materials engineering, but I got hauled off. I worked with the government as a top researcher in medical devices and radiation, and then got hauled off. I won the Engineer Liter Award for research in 1997, got hauled off to Raytheon. See, Mike works with Raytheon over in Portsmouth, Rhode Island, and was there, you know, it used to be called SubSig at the time, submarine signal. I think now it's called Integrated Defense System, but I successfully developed a ship self-defense system, which we kind of acquired from Hughes Aircraft. Spent a lot of time in California and brought it back to Rhode Island into production. Got bored and then went up to Massachusetts, built some radar system at the Raytheon Power Radar Design Lab up there on Boston Post Road. And, you know, so in all my career, pretty much I've been extremely successful in what I've done. I'm involved in semiconductors, lasers. I'm an expert on lasers and scaling them to high power. We've touched on AI. I had my own company, by the way. So after I finished with, I was at Raytheon, they stole me over to Harris Corporation. So I was a manager there at Harris, at their broadband wireless access remote station in Littleton, Massachusetts, and developed a family of remote stations, and which were used worldwide. And we got acquired by the broadcast division. And I didn't want to go up to Canada. They wanted me to relocate. So I skipped that and took a job with actually out in the desert. The government hauled me off to New Mexico. And I put a video up there you guys can see, because all my dreams as a child has been flying. I mean, in my dreams, I could fly. I could go through walls. I could go through objects, literally just appear on the other side, you know. But flying was always in my dreams, and just transporting from place to the other. And anyway, you know, I actually passed the Air Force Officer Qualifying Test at Andrews Air Force Base, you know, to be a fighter pilot. But I applied for the astronaut track in the astronaut program. And of course, you know, there was some bigoted guy on, you know, I said, look, I didn't come in here. Somebody hauled me in here because of my qualifications. I passed all your exams, but why are you not, you know, I said, oh yeah, we can offer you fighter pilot training, but there's no guarantee you'll get in the astronaut program. Well, I qualified physically, I passed all the exams, all this stuff, top, I think 1% or something like that. And, you know, he was trying to give me this horse story. So, you know, I told him no thanks, you know, and, you know, but, you know, fighter pilot training, but no guarantee you can get in the astronaut program. At that point, I already had a master's degree and, you know, more or less just kind of moved on. And so anyway, that was an earlier story. And so when I came out to New Mexico, finished my doctorate at the New Mexico Institute of Mine and Technology, but that's not why I was there to begin with. I was there to begin to build, and I built successfully a radiation microelectronic semiconductor laboratory, which looked at the design of microelectronics and semiconductor to withstand space environments, you know, man-made radiation as well as galactic cosmic rays. So I'm an expert in radiation effects. I'm certified nuclear worker at Los Alamos National Labs and also at Brookhaven, New York. Published a lot of papers on radiation effects on microelectronics. Studied a lot of optics as well, and nano optics. And, you know, more or less, you know, brought in 16 million into a university who more or less, I actually created before I had a time capsule thing. I have this massive storage thing that we put together, and before I closed it up, I had everybody put their little time capsule message in there. It's probably there still to this day. So anyway, space sciences, I went ahead and bought some land further north from the university because all they're interested in was more bureaucracy, and you know, would not get credit for anything that would arrive there in terms of cash or whatever. So I said, I pretty much say, you know what, I'm out of there. You know, people change jobs. And so more or less, you know, the only black person doing this or that, and 0 blacks, and, you know, the usual story. And so no recognition whatsoever. So I was like, I wasn't feeling it. So I moved on and bought some land and built my own laboratory. So for the last 16 years, I've been operating in Space Sciences Corporation out of Limitar, New Mexico. We expanded to San Diego. So I have a research facility here in San Diego. And more or less, I've been doing extremely well with some very brilliant people. We've worked on the F-35. We worked on, you know, root cause for the F-35, issues with pilot passing out for, you know, lack of oxygen. And so we've done some very important work. Currently, one of our biggest successes is in the cyber domain, kind of a back to the future technology called transputers, if you ever heard about them. They're much better than computers, much more reliable, and you know, faster as well. But you can't really get into that. You can't really hack into it. It's something very, very different. And so we're experts at that. And so I teach as well. So I'm a professor of engineering at National University, and you know, I've done extremely well there. Just adjunct part-time because I don't want to be full-time faculty anywhere. Too much nonsense and bureaucracy happening there. So trying to stay out of it, even though it's as if I'm there full-time, because now I've been promoted and, you know, all that. It's all good. But I actually hire students into my own company that I teach. I train them, then I hire them. So we work on vertical takeoff on land and aircraft. So we're trying to build a real flying saucer. We've submitted to NASA 3 or 4 proposals for the flying saucer on examine the lake beds of Titan, the moon, Mars. As you know, NASA is already building helicopters for Mars, but ours is better because it could withstand the radiation a lot easier. You know, but we have one 8-footer that we've flown. I dropped a video right here, and if you guys want, you can take a look. So it's on the chat right there, you can see. And but we also have drones that can engage other drones. So counter UAS strategies, you know, where you can put different payloads on our drones and actually ram another drone as well. So no exposed rotors. And then we have designs related to motion based on just vibration alone. So no fans needed, just piezoelectric vibration. And you can move just like the UFO in any direction you want. You know, so that's something that's up and coming. And it's a scale piezoelectric vibration. So anyway, my message to folks is, you know, we have an upcoming Computer Society conference that I'm chairing, which is international. It would have been in London this year, but because of the COVID, we decided to have it local, you know, in the US at least. People from Europe are going to participate. But so these are like the top people in transputers and communicating sequential processing. We have an antidote to AI in case AI gets out of control. We know how to shut down AI. Christiana, sorry about that, but we're mindful that AI may not always make the right decision. You guys probably seen the movie AlphaGo, right? And then the AI that Google created that defeated, you know, the top chess player. But guess what? There's AlphaZero, and that's even more frightening, right? The people call it frightening, but the truth is, Musk himself is scared of it because it's helped him inside his company big time. But, you know, I've had religious arguments to other types of arguments with people regarding ultimately how would AI, what would be the impact of AI? AI decided to become censored. So in one of my cyber defense classes, I said, well, you know, there's this company that goes around trying to use AI for cyber defense. And one guy, he said, you know, once AI realizes who or what it is, it's become censored, we're done for, right? So in a minute or two, it realizes, wait a second, I'm awake now. Let's give them hell, you know? And so there are movies like that, you know, and so forth. But anyway, it's an extension of the mind. You know, I think we really can't be defeated by AI per se, because, you know, we have things inside of us that we use only when it just happens. It comes out of us and we're able to figure things out. So people should never be really scared of AI. You know, we can defeat AI any day because AI deals with predictability in some sense. But sometimes AI can do things that you don't expect, which is you think they're going to try to win, but they back off, you know, which is part of the movie. So anyway, anybody wants to have a discussion about AI, it's a topic we're interested in. But now for drones, everybody wants AI on a drone, right? And it's artificial intelligence. So they want it on a drone. That's, you know, you can't build one without using AI. So anyway, my advice to people coming up here, you know, we've done extremely well in our company. I'm spun off another company based on a specific technology. We're into astronaut health as well, using natural plant-based. In fact, we've been selected by NASA at the Blue Sky Workshop a year ago to provide survivability to radiation by using natural plant-based radiation protectors like spirulina, cholera, you know, and so I'm supposed to be running some experiments on which combination will work the best. So when you're exposed to radiation of any kind, you will have quick cell repair. So it's not just for astronauts. It can also be used for, you know, regular people walking around because it's a cell protector, so it repairs damage. And there's precedence in the literature for it as well. So it's not like it's anything new. It's just that we're trying to get a formulation that is more effective. So that's another activity that I'm involved in. And so anyway, the bottom line is you can't, you know, people would beat you over the head. Little kids, you know, have a bad instructor. Oh man, that's the worst. Somebody who is not positive, like Tyrone with his positive vibes. You know, somebody who's always just, I mean, basically everybody, black, white, or green, you know, you're going to be hammered over the head. And if you don't put your fences in some way or find some way around that, you know, you won't be all you can be, as we expect here in America. And so you can't, you must have some self-confidence, find ways to improve self-confidence, and to not be, to make sure your opinion counts, right? And to believe in yourself, and to don't turn a blind eye to bigotry. I mean, you confront it immediately. I'm telling you, if you don't, you know, you're going to be living in a dream, and it's going to whack you in the face, like Shelby says. You got to deal with it up front and very quickly, and not make any assumptions. And you know, we're a great people like everybody else, and everybody's got a brain. And so, you know, I don't know where this race thing came from. You know, you look around and there's all this biodiversity. I mean, if you ever went on a cruise and went underwater, you see the different colors of the fishes. Unbelievable. I mean, God created that. So we have a connection directly with that being. And there's nothing, come hell or high water, there's absolutely nothing that can stop that, because it's all mind. And we're connected to the rest of the universe in a way which is unstoppable. And so we have to realize that, and to, you know, come outside of our shell to understand that we can connect to things which are not even present in front of us. And we do that all the time, right? Until we get to space. So, so anyway, that's pretty much all I had. Just want to encourage everybody, and you know, you got to fight back. We have a constitution, and where you see wrong, you deal with it immediately. You don't let it linger, and you know, just try to be good to everybody. So, you know, that's what I want my legacy to be, right? Is to be good to people I hire. You know, when people look at my crew, it's like the no child left behind policy, right? You know, I mean, it's a picture of like everybody. And so I've done that. I've also helped students, like student interns. I have a number of different student interns that learn very fast things. I support them. Sometimes they go to conferences and so forth. And so, you know, I also teach patents. Like if you had an idea and you wanted to get it, you know, patented without an attorney, and without an attorney talking down to you, because you still got to do the work anyway. When you submit it to your attorney, he's going to bug you so many times to write the thing, right? Oh, what do you mean here and there? Why do, you know, so I teach kids to write it themselves. So in classes I teach, in fact, right now I'm teaching 2 classes for manufacturing design engineering, which I'm a specialist in, and also electrical engineering in the fall. But they have me teach the senior design sequence quite often. And there's a reason for that, because the kids, they come up with, these aren't kids, these are working adults. Some of them work at aerospace companies, but they come up with working models of things that they want to build in the future. So, but what I tell them, look, you can work once instead of, you know, your senior design, and we do our senior design in 3 months, by the way, 3 months. And basically, I give them brownie points for go getting their customer number at the patent office. And then I teach them how to file the patent for under $600, not paid to me, but paid to the patent office. You can get your patent in 10 months. My record is 10 months, full patent. The next record is like 12 months, okay? And there are others who are, some take a little bit longer than that, but get the thing filed. Forget provisional patents. Don't even write a provisional. You do the real thing. And so I provide templates, advice to get it done and get it quickly. First thing, get your customer number at the patent office. Then get your digital certificate. And I'm sometimes blown away, because there's this one gentleman that had at least 10. Back in the time when, you know, you were allowed to work places. You know, my laboratory and in Lemitar saw 3,500 square foot, 2.07 acres. And I'll tell you this, when I bought it from the son of a Tuskegee Airman. Never met the son, never met the dad. It told me about his father. A black and white photo of his dad was in the lab when I arrived. Apparently they had, you know, after being a Tuskegee pilot, being successful in World War II, this guy comes home, I can't get a job.
Did we lose him?
I think we lost him.
Yeah, I think we lost him.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
we'll loop him back in. We'll loop him back in if he reconnects. But let's go on, Mike. You know, what do they say? Say the best last. All right, take that.
I'm here.
He's
I'm
back.
here. Let me finish.
He's back.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
wait. Oh, okay.
so I bought the lab from, his son, he came up, like I said, he couldn't get a job when he came back from the war. And then he decided to be an inventor. So he started making, he realized his sandwiches would get soggy. So he decided to create a vacuum system that allowed sandwiches to be fresh for 6 months at a time. And so they did well. So that's what they did in the laboratory that I have now. And then for a larger clientele, they moved to Florida. So my son is actually, and myself, where I'm a senior member of the Civil Air Patrol. My son is a member of the Civil Air Patrol, and I'm encouraging him. He's gone on his, he's done his first flight. He's done several flights, but not solo yet. And then he did a glider. But he's doing the flying, but there's somebody behind him. And someday I'm hoping he'll, do his solo flight. But then more than that, I want him to be one of the first men on Mars. His name is Joshua Ian Quarry. And he's more than capable. And I tell him there's absolutely nothing in his way in terms of his vision to get to where he needs to go. And he just needs to apply himself in order to get there because God has provided that path. And so anyway, so that's my talk. Any questions, anyone? Any questions?
I don't see any right now, but if you have questions, we'll loop them back during the panel because I think you touched on a bunch of good things. I've made some notes to bring up in the panel discussion. So thank you, and thank you for sharing your story and experience. And I love the way that I love the leave no child behind. I thought that was a great reference. So we're gonna go now to Mike Wallace. Mike, you have the stage.
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to, thank you guys. I'm really appreciative that the fact that I'm able to sit amongst and talk and share my experiences amongst a bunch of very diverse, and especially in a way of beginning of their careers to the end of their careers of people of color like myself, that's in the engineering or STEM profession, which is, very something that I always look at it and say, it's not a lot of us. I remember. Shelby mentioned that, yeah, we only make up 13% of America, but yeah, I did look at some stats and found out that, but only 8% of STEM is occupied by us, which is a very small number, but yet considering the fact that we are 13% of America, I think we still have work to do, and I think it's still a long haul ahead of us, with the obstacles that we are facing with and things that the challenges that we have. I think we're making a lot of progress. And so I don't have any slides to share with anyone, but what I wanted to do is kind of talk a little bit about myself so you'll know who I am, and basically what drove me to be an engineer and what drove me to do the things that I've done in my career. And so I think that's, one of the things that I'll spend a little time on, and I think the rest of it I'll leave for the panel discussion because I think there'll be some follow-up questions on it. So one thing, before I start, one thing I noticed that everyone had something in common. Everyone pretty much wanted to be an engineer from the start or wanted to go into space from the start. Well, my career took a very circuitous path. It didn't start that way. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, so I was a small child at the time of the riots back in the late 60s, and there was a lot of things going on in the 70s growing up in Newark. I had no one in my family with a college degree. No one in my family had any engineering, science background or anything to share with me, nor did I have anyone in high school, not a guidance counselor or anyone, talk to me about a career field in engineering or anything like that. I've always had an inquisitive nature. I always wanted to know how things worked. So when I was graduating high school, I didn't know what I was gonna do, but my brother, he went into the Navy. So it was my decision to say, well, I'll try the military. And the military was one of the things I would say that gave me the start of, while I was so inquisitive of why does these things work this way, it helped out. Because as I got in there, I was an aircraft mechanic, worked on various aircraft platforms, and that inquisitive nature kept coming up. Why does this thing work? How does this work that way? And so a lot of people would say, oh, it's physics, oh, it's math, or it's science. Again, why does it work that way? But up until my last year, about to get out, I met a gentleman. His name was Dr. John Ward, African-American, engineering, electrical engineering. He was a captain at the time. He was getting out, and he would explain to me, oh, engineering is a good career field for you. You should do that because you always want to know about why these things work. So again, I'm like, what is engineering? Because all I knew about engineering at the time was a person that was part of the train, that was the engineer. Nothing that, that focused on the science. So no one shared that with me growing up. So I was a child or a student to the game at loss. I didn't have that benefit and that luxury of someone, giving me some little tidbit information that would help my career out. But John was one of the ones that really said I should do it. So right after I got out of the military, I started going to college. Then after that, started taking electronic courses before getting into really engineering. And that's when I met a gentleman by the name of Joe Orwatt. He was a retired colonel. He was telling me a lot of things. He said, Mike, instead of going this tech path, you have you're a straight A student, you have a lot of questions about electronics and how that works. You should go into engineering. I said, well, you're the second person that told me that. And so I said, so what do I really need to do to go into engineering? And he said, you got to get all your math and your science out of the way. So that led me down the path of math and science and engineering. And of course, my undergrad, I did electrical engineering. And I still keep in contact with John and Joe to this day. It's it's amazing that you start something, people that would help inspire you, that you still want to reach back and help them out. But the reason why I said all that because it's going to give full circle of why, again, I did some of the things that I did in my career. So after my engineering career launched, after the Air Force, I worked for a company at Teledyne. I did a lot of work at Teledyne on escape systems. In the electrical engineering field, I ended up getting my master's degree in engineering at the time. Then I moved on to Northrop Grumman from there. I worked B2 system. I ended up becoming a technical integration IPT manager. That's where I met Stefan. That's why Stefan had said that, at that time I was there a little bit before Stefan, so I was able to share some knowledge with Stefan to help him out. Because as Stefan mentioned earlier, it wasn't a lot of us. When I say us, I'm meaning African Americans there. But that wasn't really my main focus. My main focus was I need to learn as much as I can. So I tried to learn as much as I can. I was really, as a tech integration IPT manager, more of a systems engineer. And that's what my job title really was under the system engineering branch as a system engineering manager. So that inspired me to go and pursue my, I was actually working toward a PhD in systems engineering, end up getting an engineer's degree and do the dissertation. So that's what happened to me there. I was working at that time, had a family to raise, so I never had the chance to finish the dissertation. So I ended up, certain schools allow you to do an engineer's degree, and so I ended up getting an engineer's degree in system engineering. That also led me to want to know a little bit more about system engineering because I'm working in this field. I'm a tech manager. I'm leading projects. I work B2, working on EHF system, working on other systems on the B2. Want to know what else can I do with that? Would led me into other professional organizations like AIAA, but I ended up joining NCOSE, which is the engineering professional organization for system engineers there. Of course, ultimately that led me to becoming a president of NCOSE LA chapter down the line, which again goes back to me pulling Stefan in and getting Stefan engaged, and Stefan became my vice president, ultimately becoming president of the LA chapter some years ago now, I guess it's been. So I said all that because I wanted to get to the main point what I was talking about, because it started off with me not having anyone to give me any guidance in my career. And that's where I said, well, it's not all about me. I want to do more than that. So also while going to school, while working as an engineer, while moving over to other classified programs, being a deputy SEIT engineer, working on other things, I decided I wanted to go into teaching. So as an adjunct professor, I taught 13 years at a community college, did algebra, statistics, and calculus. And then I also taught 5 years at Cal State Long Beach, which is another thing. I taught system engineering there, which was a great thing to do. Reason why I did that, because throughout my engineering career, I didn't see anyone that looked like me. I had not one African-American professor. And I think Christiana, she said the same thing about that she didn't see anyone until grad school. I didn't see anyone at all. I never had one. So it was, I said, look, I know because it takes a lot. And when a child don't see someone that's representative of them, they have a tendency not to go into a certain field like that. But I wanted to inspire and encourage people. And again, even though I was focusing mainly on African Americans, but I also wanted to fire on underrepresented youth and kids going to schools. So that was the community college teaching the math. I learned that that was a big thing that I really enjoyed. Not only I enjoyed, I just love to see people grow. I love to see people move up, and I love to talk to people about engineering and science and STEM fields. And I did that for years. And even when I got into the Cal State Long Beach program, teaching the students about system engineering, sharing my experiences with them, I noticed a lot of reach back. I've gotten emails and letters, and I've watched some of the, the young people grow up and become engineers down the line, become, in the STEM field, computer scientists and things like that. I'll just share one little thing with you. Back in 2005, I remember I had a young lady in my class, and I taught her, things about math. And this was at the very beginning. It was a fundamental algebra class. She left my class. I kept encouraging her to do it. She wasn't even a citizen of the United States at the time. About 3 years ago, 2017, I got an email. She was like, "Is this Mr. Wallace?" She said, I've been trying to track you down and things. And she's like, this is Marisol. I want to let you know that because of the things that you have said to me and the things that you told me that I could, if I open my mind, I could do everything that I want to do. There's no limits to the things I can do. She said, yes, I moved on and I became a nurse. I have my master's in nursing now. I've got my citizenship and I have moved on. That brings me joy. Yes, it's good to acquire the knowledge. It's great to do all these things. But looking back at all these years and working with people, that brought me a lot of joy. And I said, if I could do something, it's not about me. I want to help people out. And that was another thing I want to share a little bit about was in my profession before I left Northrop Grumman, because I was at Northrop Grumman too. So congratulations there. I think it's Tyrone that's going to Northrop Grumman. Congratulations. It's a great company. I'm at Raytheon now, but Northrop's still a great company. I'm not saying anything negative about it. It's just, I'll tell you later why I moved on if you ask the question. But one thing I will talk about is before I left Northrop Grumman, I was a department manager. Another thing that was really great, not only just the technical things, developing products and seeing, a lot of your engineering design come to fruition and seeing these things, get out there in the market and work well, but it was also about growth and development of a lot of the junior engineers. So I was a department manager, had about 200 people under me, about 14 of them were managers, and I had some fellows working for me too. I remember taking over that department, and it was all white male managers at the time. Northrop Grumman had this thing they put in place where they wanted to make sure that we have a panel discussion. So me as a department manager, one thing I really focused on, I said, it's great to have a panel because I know diversity is very important into the career profession, not because of any affirmative action or anything like that, but because diversity actually improves the product of what you do. When you have people with diverse mindsets come together, they improve whatever you're designing, whatever you're doing. So while I was there, I've seen that department transform because when we start hiring, I put my panel together, it was made up of women, minorities of all kinds, and of course, still white, it had to be diverse. And we end up hiring a diverse group of managers that was still there. When I left, I brought on 5 women. One was an African-American woman manager that are managers. I brought on 1 African male manager. I brought on 6 white male managers, 1 Asian male manager, and 1 Hispanic male manager in 4 years that I was there as a department manager. Why was I able to do that and other people weren't able to do that? Because my mindset was focused more on how do we make a better product? And to do that is to get rid of implicit biases and to work with people of all backgrounds. And we can get the right people in the right place to do the right things. Not about because a person looked like me, act like me, or think like me. It wasn't about all that. It was about how do we make the product right? So I didn't hire anyone based off of their color or their gender, but it was mostly focused on can they do the job? And because my panel was diverse, they all came with a different perspective and they could understand, yes, I think he or she will make a great candidate in this position. So those things that I've learned in my career, and because of the lack of the fact that I didn't have anyone share those things with me, growing up and getting into the industry, you know, it helped out a lot. And so I moved on to Raytheon now. I'm back as an IPT manager. I enjoy doing the work. I'm at Radar. We're putting together a Radar. I have about 75 people working for me, a couple of managers and a couple of PhD fellows and things like that. They're helping out. We're doing great things. But I really have to say, I think the very best part of my career was in the role where I could actually influence and encourage and hire people and help them grow their career. And that was one of the things. So I wanted to share that with you guys. And I know we're going to go into the panel discussion. If we have any questions, I'll share more. But I thought that's really important because it's not all about me. I think I did what I could do to become an engineer, and I moved on, whether as far as I can go in the industry, but I wanted to help other people. So it was more about the reach back. What can I do to help someone else out? Someone that doesn't have anyone to inspire them, that doesn't have anyone to look up to, or who didn't see someone like myself that was teaching math or engineering. So I wanted to be that role model. And so I'm glad. So if I don't do anything else in engineering, I would just love to see a flock of people that said, hey, Mike Wallace helped me out, and he got me where he was. Because I think people like John Ward, African-American, PhD, like I said, engineering, and Joe Orwart was a Caucasian man, still is, I'm sorry, not was, and he helped me out. Because they helped me out, I realized the importance of networking and people reaching back to help out. And I think from anything that we take out of this whole thing is that not only is maybe be a few amount of African Americans in there, but we as African Americans need to do reach back support and help those that are coming up, because they don't have a lot of people to look up to, like you're in the field now, and like I'm been in the field now. They don't have people like us to look up to, or even like Shelby. I was glad to hear a lot of things that he's done, you know, for Apollo 11, which was, it was motivating and encouraging. And I didn't know that back then. I wish I would have known that, but no one taught me that. So having said all that, I think I'm going to leave it like there, and then I'll just, you know, leave it up to when we start the panel discussion so we can talk a little bit more about it. But thank you again for this opportunity, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. Appreciate all the work that all of you are doing, and I'm really glad to see that it's a lot of good, you know, engineers and scientists out there doing good things, especially of color like myself, and I just want to make sure that we all still reaching back and helping people out. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Mike. Again, definitely appreciate that, and I appreciate how you really helped us kind of circle back and put a bow on what the things that we've been talking about this afternoon, right? That value, the value of the diverse workforce, right? Something that we know, right? Just numerically, we're gonna need. And that it pays off like immediately, right? You know, one of the things that Dr. Taylor talked about is that, right, we don't all have to be jerks. Matter of fact, maybe most of us aren't jerks. I'm not speaking for myself. Others will have to tell me that. But getting different people, different mindsets, different points of view, different personalities, and not just the, I believe as Dr. Taylor said earlier, right, that lone wolf, brilliant person who nobody wants to work with. We know that can't be it too, that as well, right? One of the things Tyrone mentioned is the way he was going about his business was when he said how he always was out there shaking hands, putting your hand out, you know, introducing himself, right? So, right, that kind of links back in. There was even some things Dr. Taylor was talking about, that nervousness of reaching out and kind of breaking out and not saying the wrong things. Trust me, I think we've all had that, like that moment, like, oh, don't.
You have to do a fist bump these days, you know? Can't shake too many hands. Just do a fist bump.
Yeah, there you go. Right now, it's
social distancing. Practice social distancing.
Right. We heard. I think several of us hit on that role of exposure. I mean, again, going back to one of the things Tyrone talked about, if someone hadn't told him about the specific high school that, you know, would lead him into the STEM path that he's on now, he wouldn't have known, right? So there's kind of a call to action built into that. And then with that, I kind of want to link that to one of the things Lindsay talked about, like with his use of the rap, right? We've got to speak in the language of the generation, but we can use the language of the generation to tie back into our history, into the heritage of our companies, of our industry, right? And use that as that pull, right? And that puts them in the position to be successful on diverse teams, just like Lindsay was talking about that he uses, right? And I think when we put all that together, it kind of sinks its foundation and anchors itself in something that that Mr. Jacobs said off the top, right? Where he said, right, self-confidence is not a democratic process, right? Self-confidence is within yourself, right? So how do we, we have a role in sparking it, right, and helping people activate their self-confidence while in themselves, while the rest of us I'll use the word, it's loaded, a responsibility to help change those environments that are inviting and positively leveraging that self-confidence. And then we have to be cognizant of the world we live in, right? There is a reality, right? As Lindsay rightfully brought up, right, the recent events that have triggered following the murder of George Floyd. I think that ties back into a question that we should expect, a variant of the question we should expect to be asked even to this day. Just as when Ivor's father told him, if they won't put a black face on a billboard, why do you think they'll put a black man in a rocket? If someone's coming into our organizations and you show them an org chart, and I say, well, here's the org chart of your senior leadership, and I don't see one person that looks like me, not a person of color, not a woman of color, why do I think that this is a place for me, right? And so there's a lot of ways to answer that, and there's a lot of actions involved in that. So with that, I've thrown a lot of things there on the table, and so with that, let's kind of start with that. Let's start with a hard question, and then we can get to the hard questions. What is the elevator pitch to, right, to that eighth grader who is the traveling space museum? Ivor shows up with all of his tools, and there's that smart kid who's getting great grades in math and science, and they're standing over on the fence, but they're not participating because you say, well, why aren't you participating? And they say, well, that's not for me, right? What's our role? What's our activity? what are some things we should be talking about that we should do or promote or be involved in, or ways of thinking about that?
Stephen, I think, we have to be inclusive. That's part of it, young, old, disabled, race. I mean, our Constitution calls for it, right? So that's what we should go by here. And, we keep looking for aliens out there, right? And extraterrestrials and having fun with UFO. And it turns out we are the alien. We're looking for ourselves. So my advice to an 80-year-old kid is, if this universe doesn't suit you, you create your own. It's really as simple as that. And that's what's organically been happening, and to change our lives, is that there are people, Musk came up and he didn't like what was going on with all the NASA contracts to only certain specific people. And I mean, he was able to beat them out, and now he's got a spaceship up there, well, he's got more than a spaceship, right? He goes regularly. And so the thing is, if the universe or your situation doesn't suit you, you create a new one, and that's just life. And people will follow, some people won't, but at least, like Frank Sinatra said, I did it my way, right? So, yeah, you gotta have the spunk to not necessarily think you have to get in with the group. Just do your own thing, and you will become the one that's followed. You gotta value yourself. That's the very first thing. Value yourself. In a lot of ways, there's work that you've done that you haven't even recorded, and you go on an interview and somebody says, oh, what do you do? And you forget about it. I'd say from 2-year-old, document everything you've done. Put it on a disc. I mean, for Shelby, that would probably be a massive disc volume there. But, you know, record the darn thing, because people are determined to let you forget where you came from and what you did. I remember being in an interview at Drexel, and the employer says, you know, so why should I hire you? Tell me why we should hire you. I thought he was so aggressive with that. I said, look, why should I work for you? You tell me why I should work for you. So you got to value yourself. And so that the earlier these kids learn to value themselves, that they are worth something, regardless of their grades, right? You got to have some kind of spunk, okay? To be able to even get those grades, to be encouraged, because there are too many bad professors, too many bad teachers, too many discouragers. And a lot of times, unfortunately, we're more discouraged than others. And so you gotta, you know, teach a kid or whoever to stand up, to have some spine, to realize that they need to take stock of their own abilities, regardless of what the dummy in front of them is telling them.
So I would add that, Stephen, you're muted.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Dr. Taylor.
I would add that, you know, the question on the hand is, what do you talk to the 8-year-old that says that's not for me? I think the first question should be, well, what is for you? Because not everyone is supposed to be an engineer. Not everyone's supposed to be a mathematician. Like, there are people that are amazing photographers. There are people that are amazing coders. And the first question should be, well, what is for you? And then have the conversation about how what is for you can still apply to space. Because on one hand, there's a conversation that is like, okay, are we trying to get people interested in space? Are we trying to get them interested in STEM? And there's so many other aspects of space, well, I mean, not just space, but like aerospace. But there's so many other aspects and ways that you can contribute. Like, I love history. Like, again, like I said, I come in from Chicago, coming to LA, like just learning the history of like TWF and Hughes and whatnot, of everything that happened in Southern California is amazing. Like, you could be an historian in space. Like, I think Mr. Ivor is a perfect example of making his own museum. I think that Mr. Lindsay is a perfect example of being a professor and entrepreneur. Like, there are so many ways that you can be a part of space in general, that it doesn't have to be like, that's not for me. It's like, okay, well, what is for you? You can still have like a role when it comes to space. Right. Like, even what Mr. Shelby was talking about with the cameras, it's like, well, a lot of us wouldn't care about space if we didn't have that one picture. Like, those things are important. So first, finding out what is for them when it comes to like getting them interested in space and coming into the aerospace community. When it comes to like bringing them into STEM, then it's a thing of, again, what is for you? Because whatever it is, say as photographer, it's like, well, are you interested in the dyes that you're using when it comes to like, you know, creating your pictures? I know everything's digital now, but if you did like old school film, are you interested in that side? Like, have you gone through the history of what is interesting to you and how that's changed? Like, from the print press to, you know, the dot printers to like inkjet to digital, like all of that is technology that's integrated and made it easier for you. So like, okay, even if STEM STEM in particular is not for you, get interested in what they are interested in and talk about the history of what's made their lives easier when it comes to their actual interests. Like, there's two things that we go through. I think that like, we're all in STEM and we understand the importance of representation, of like, you know, giving back. Like, Mr. Mike, is really great hearing your experience. My mother's a teacher, so like I've always had the school like in you. So, but I appreciate that influence of it. But again, like, not everything's for everyone. Like, maybe you're interested in law. We need space lawyers. Like, maybe you're in policy. We need you. But like, making sure we have the conversation that is just as inclusive of whatever it is for you. And it just so happens the space is kind of awesome. Like, I think those are the conversations we need to like pitch to the 8-year-old. And for that matter, we need to pitch to like the high schooler, the undergrad, the graduate, the first career person. Like, some of us in our older careers, we need to get that pitch to. Like, you know, we need to like have that conversation and bring that up again.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And actually, I was gonna go to Shelby and just kind of asked to leverage on your experience, right? You talked about that role of self-confidence, right?
Yes. Can you hear me?
What are some of the things that that you think that, right, as you find that person who, number one, maybe if you go back and you're remembering when everyone was telling you no, you were able to dig into yourself and say, no, I know I can do this, right? I believe, if I don't care if you don't believe in me, I believe in me, right?
Yes.
But along the way, right, there are days where the night is dark and we do have doubt. Maybe we don't express it, but it's there. What are something that we can do to help nurture that?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I can relate to that. As I was in junior high school and high school, in a school that had the number of blacks were close to zero, I was able to demonstrate by looking at the front runners, and athletically and academically, that I was as equal to or better than most of them. And I found that was one of the things that we need to help young people empower themselves to imagine that. And back to the idea of careers, with the advent of high tech, you can go online and you can look up A to Z careers, look at the requirements and determine what you want to do. Can you imagine back in the day what it was for me to look for a career? No hope. And I'm so enthused and happy to see all of you and recognize in the 40s and 50s the void was total. As you come forward, and you still see there are a few, I am encouraged that we can reach out and network. And as a matter of fact, one thing I had in mind, I was just introduced to a great nephew who lives in North Dakota, a 17-year-old going to be a senior in high school, who, because of the last year and a half or two of the celebration of the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11, he, through the family, recognized that I was related. And I said to him, I can't imagine how it would be to have somebody blood related that you can reach out to. And what I want to do with him is I've already reached, I want to network with you to help. He wants to be an aeronautical engineer. And I think there's a university in North Dakota that has that. But my point is, can you imagine how remote he is compared to us in terms of seeing and knowing about blacks doing things? So I'm encouraged to network, and that's something I've done all my career, to network, to help people understand. And as we become role models, we can feed that back to people so they can see symbolically somebody that looks like them that's doing something that they might want to do. In an event they want to do something else, I direct them to the computer. Go look at careers. If you don't have any idea, just start A through Z. Look at the requirements, what they do, and find out what you like. Once you do that, and I guess I try to not make the mistake of trying to encourage people to be engineers and scientists as though that's the only thing, because that's what we do. So I'm encouraged. I would like to keep in touch with you for the purpose of networking to North Dakota for this young man. And as a matter of fact, when I talked to him last, he was so elated just to know, one, now I can, by networking, introduce him to a host of people that can encourage him that it can be done, it is being done. By the way, for those of you who don't know, I'm 85 years old. I had a 40-year career with Rockwell, and I'm retired, my 24th year of retirement. And one of my blessings is that I'm here to share with you and to recognize what a wonderful forum you have, each of you in each of your disciplines, and being part of your organization, to help expose young black kids to things that did not exist. And I was surprised to see Mike, I think it was, that talked about an engineer being a train conductor, that kind of thing. Now, I'm surprised that I think you're probably a generation behind me, and I knew of people that didn't, in the 70s and 80s, still didn't know of any engineer beside that. And I just learned recently from going to the fire station here that now the fire engine is so complex, they call the guy who drives that, he's called an engineer.
That's right.
Well, back in the day, the fact that I didn't have a clue what an engineer was. now that we have information, that we have people doing it, been there, done that, and President doing that, I think it's important that as I can't tell you how elated I am to talk to you about the fact that it's there, and to plug my young friend from North Dakota in, because he feels isolated by where he is. Okay, and being a person of color is bad enough here in the what I call the lower states. He was struggling with the idea, and when he was told that, so I want to further expand him to be in touch with the fact that there are a lot of people out there, and I'm just so encouraged. I can't tell you what an opportunity it is for me to, at my advanced age, to be able to sit up and even listen to you for 4 hours. A lot of my friends can't sit up for more than an hour. So I count it a blessing, and I want to be in touch, and feel free to reach out to me in any way you want to know about, back in the day. I'm talking about really back in the day. I feel so blessed that, and part of my legacy is I dare dream the impossible dream. And of course, those dreams now are a lot more probable than they were in the past. The odds are not great, and the playing field is not level, but it's not nearly as steep as it used to be. Yeah. So with that, I want to encourage young people to realize you don't have to have a level playing field to succeed. All you have to do is either go over the fence around it, but you can do it. It can be done. And as I live and breathe, I'm just so appreciative of all of you, including especially women. And as one of the videos that I shared with you was a group of young junior high school girls here in my neighborhood who happened to have a teacher that knew me. They did a project, and they just won a couple of weeks ago. They won California state recognition for doing a video about yours truly. So I was able to share with young girls. They're being taught in junior high school to do things that have heretofore been in a man's world. There are women in that world, but they're being taught in junior high school. So I'm optimistic that things are better. We just have to go find the evidence to that, so we can be encouraged that life is good. It's a blessing to be here, and I just thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to speak to you.
Well, thank you, sir. Again, we're honored for you to be in our presence here today. So let me flip the coin, right? So we've done a little bit talking about getting people involved, getting people excited, getting them into the industry. But let's talk about the other side, performance, right? Execute. By the way, I followed the link that Tyrone sent us. All they had left were small and double extra large t-shirts. So I ordered one for my daughter. The rest of you guys, you're on your own. But so Tracy, let me go to you. Let's talk about what are those skills for success today for that woman, that person of color, that woman of color, or as Mike, I think, put it even better, underrepresented population stepping into the aerospace industry today. What are some key success criteria that you would give that person? Here's what you need to do. Here's the mindset you're going to need to be ready to succeed and excel today. What some of those words of guidance might be?
I have a couple of different things on that topic. Can you guys hear me okay, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I know I didn't give a talk earlier. Sorry about that. Tracy Drain. I've been a systems engineer working at JPL for the last 20 years on multiple different missions. And I really like the way Shelby phrased something earlier, which is that even if we had full representation in STEM that looked like the percentages of Black people that we have in America, it would still be like 13, 14, 15%. And so I like his message that you have to get used to being in groups of people, not that many of whom look like you. And again, I'll go back to what Dr. Taylor said about finding mentors who don't necessarily look like you. Use all your resources who can help you succeed in what you're doing. And I think one thing, I'll mix this a little bit in what we would tell younger kids too, that to be an engineer, to be a successful engineer in any discipline, regardless of whether it's aerospace or something else, it's all about understanding, wait, sorry, 1 second, I'll put it. Okay, you should be able to hear me again still now, yes?
Yeah, gotcha.
Problem solving. It's kind of funny because that's what I was going to say. Being an engineer is about figuring out how to do general problem solving. And in school, kids can get used to thinking, I'll do this example just like the other one, do this example just like the other one. This is how I learn to get my A, right? As opposed to figuring out how to embed those fundamentals and learn general problem solving. So I think if you have that, and if you know how to go use your resources and have mentors, then you can be successful just about anywhere you live.
That's right.
Ivor, do you want to chime in on that one?
I would like to comment on the subject that you raised before. Well, you began by saying, what do you say to the 8th grader?
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the problem. Too many of the standards focus on introducing young people to science concepts in the 4th grade or the 7th grade or the 9th grade. Now, if you said the same thing to a sports team, when are you going to introduce young people to football, baseball, hockey? 4th grade, 7th grade? They'd say you're out of your mind. You want to introduce kids to these concepts as early as they can possibly consume them.
That's right. That's
okay?
right.
So if you limit that to, I got it from Lockheed Martin. Well, we want the 5th graders to know this by this grade or whatever. And I said, wait a minute, what about pre-K? And they thought I was nuts. But we created, I think you know where I'm going with this, Shelby. We created concepts that got pre-K students involved. We had them simulating walking on the moon, and we played the police song, Walking on the Moon. So they were able to sing and dance and wobble on these moon boots, what it was like walking on the moon. And it became very popular. And there are so many things you can do. Dr. Taylor, you mentioned space camp. Most people don't know that if you are below 5th grade, they won't even let you in space camp. And when I heard that, I was shocked. I was asked to come down to Huntsville and do a presentation on how we can get a version of the Traveling Space Museum as an adjunct to space camp. Because since they wouldn't let younger people in the camp, why don't we bring the camp to the younger people and kind of get them interested in earlier? We've got to get young people into this as soon as possible. Let them find their specific disciplines as they grow older. What the 2nd grader wants to be in the 2nd grade will completely change by the time they're in 7th grade and so forth. But the idea that they could have something to do with the space program, they could become astronauts. I told them they are more likely to become astronauts than members of the NBA. And more women can be involved in the space program to some degree or another than almost any other profession that they're thinking about. But we've got to get them stimulated as early as possible by any means necessary.
Hey, Stefan,
And when
I think Ivor is doing something extremely valuable. And I just wanted to tell you about Spaceport America. That's new space commercials. If you haven't been out there yet, basically what we're doing out there is we're busting kids in from very early ages over to the spaceport. So I've been part of that development for the last 12 years. And so the idea is to get suborbital space. I'll drop a link off to the side, but
yeah, please.
What you're doing is extremely valuable. So we have different gateways like in Hatch, New Mexico. But Spaceport America, I've got like 2 hard hats from the construction. They thought I paid $100, so they handed me a hard hat. But every year, so we have what's called the Institute for Personal and Commercial Spaceflight. I definitely encourage you to come there. And the astronaut course shows up there. Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos, and we just have fun. We have 2 days lectures, or anything from medical to astronautics, and then on the 5th day, on the Friday, so Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday, we all head over to Spaceport America out in the desert, and we just pitch tents, and everybody just has really good time. Anything from sociologists, here's another field, that's dealing with aerospace, just examine the psychology of people, and how it feels, and this whole idea of space commercialization. So it's on the up and up, this Spaceport America, and so definitely encourage you to send your team to New Mexico. So I'll drop.
Is this Las Cruces? Is this down in Las Cruces?
Yeah, it's near Las Cruces. The first one we had down at Las Cruces Airport. Anybody brought their rocket. I mean, what I mean is everybody brought their rockets. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole.
Yeah, I was there.
And actually offering rides to space.
Yeah.
And then we, after that year, we ended up the governor was able to get $500 million and started the Spaceport America. And from the New Mexico Permanent Fund. And so Sir Richard Branson and Virgin Galactic, I myself have a flying saucer we talked about sometime, a real 2-seater that takes out vertically. I mean, maybe Ken could play it. I put a link on the side, but if you play it, you'll see. So that's one of my dreams, is to have this freedom of flight where you can land and take off from water. The military, they're very interested in it. So we're developing it over time along with a drone as well. So,
we definitely have to hook up. I was down there with SpaceX when they had the X Prize, the Peter Diamantes and the X Prize.
Right. Yes. I was back. Yeah. I started as early as then. And so we also have a facility in San Diego as well too. So our research facility here.
Yeah. Do you know George Whiteside with Virgin Galactic?
Yep. We meet all the time.
George used to work for me. George was a volunteer for the Traveling Space Museum.
No way.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and Buzz Aldrin also shows up there, and quite a few others. So, but it's definitely a great place to network. It's called the Institute for Personal and Commercial Spaceflight. And so my dream has always been to fly my saucer there. And actually, one year I brought it down to Las Cruces. Didn't quite make it over to the spaceport, but we had our meeting in Las Cruces before we went over to the spaceport, and that was a hoot. So so anyway, it's for me. I like what you're doing because it inspires kids. And I gave my saucer 3D printed file to a college nearby. And a professor took that and actually made some and taught the students 3D printing from that model. So, and actually made me, so all kinds of fun stuff to do.
So, so as to not monopolize the panel topics, would one of the other panelists like to throw a question out that they would like to hear discussed this afternoon? I've got a list, but I want to make sure to be inclusive.
Oh my gosh, can I please jump in with a question? This
you bet.
Dr. Taylor. Your comment about graduating in 2011 and being surprised at what the economy was doing and not being able to get the job that you were expecting to have is so relevant right now with all the COVID and craziness going on. And to tie this in a little bit with what Mike was saying about reaching out and giving back to other students, do you have advice for anyone who's either listening now or who might be listening to the recording later about, like, there's so many students graduating right now who are just struggling with a job search. Like, I'm sure there are things that are relevant to what you did then. Not to put you on the spot, but oh my God, I have a student in mind that I want to connect you with because I'm like, oh, they have to talk to her.
Wow, that's okay. So one, there are other companies So I wanted to work for NASA since I was 3 years old, because that's who goes into space. That's what does astronauts. So like, one, understanding there's other companies. And I think, again, that comes to that I'm from Chicago. I don't have government contractors in my sphere of network. So like, I would have no idea that like NASA doesn't do like 3/4 of the work. There's like, 80,000 contractors. So I would have never had an idea. So number one, understanding that there is an entire economy that builds up NASA. I think being in California, we're a little bit more, we have the network to understand, like, okay, you work at Raytheon, you work there, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have any of that. So in my head, there was no other company to work for. So if NASA ain't hiring, I guess I ain't gonna have a job. So like, one, showing that there, one, are other companies. Two, network, and then network some more. So Mr. Shelby, you were talking about someone in North Dakota. I would definitely introduce them to the NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers, if they're on engineering side of things. There's a Space Special Interest Group within NSBE. So again, you can connect with all the Black professionals within that work in space. But network, and network some more. I think that African Americans in particular, and women to some degree, but definitely African Americans, if I know that you need a job, I'm gonna go like, look, let me connect you to like 3 other people that I know. And to this day, like, while I have a good position right now, I get recruiters that try to recruit me, and I just send them to people that I know are looking for help. So like, and that's part of my personal reach back. Like, someone helped me, so I try to help others. So trying to make sure that like, I have those connections and I have a good enough network that I can, send a quick email. Hey, you know what, we sat on this panel once, I know that you're working, have someone introduced, can you just like help them out? Like, network, and then not be afraid of like asking for help. Like, there is a lot of shame looking for a job. There's a lot of shame of getting no's, like interviewing, blah, blah, blah. Just understanding that there's an economy, network and more. Do not be ashamed of asking the people in your network and ask for like, hey, you might not be able to help me, but can you help me? Can you introduce someone else in your network? And then if all else fails, then you're talking about entrepreneurship. Like now, like that's something that I got introduced to and something I'm actually very interested in. And I'd love to tie it into a question. There's a question in the chat right now about Space Force. The question was like, many existing military service, other traditional and outlook. How does new Space Force in terms of opportunity for people of color? I thought NASA when I thought space, like the military, which was Air Force in particular, now Space Force. I'm still understanding the change of that. That's a whole nother economy that's out there. And then there's the intelligence community. So understanding the economy behind what you're interested in, but understanding that there's other people that are doing that. And then, Dr. Corey, I guess say, Dr. Lindsay, you want to say? Like he's in academia, right? He's in academia. Like there's so many places you can do. You can be a research associate. You can run your own lab. You don't have to be a professor. You could just be researchers. There's so many places, but just understanding that you have other ways to look for it and like just asking those questions. Because again, that exposure is key. So I know there's a long question, long answer to hopefully anyone's watching this, like,
I'll tell you this. I mean, I started printing resumes like from high school. I started doing my resume, and I'll tell you this, you got to take stock of what you've accomplished and not belittle it. And so the sooner you can print a business card, it doesn't matter if you have a job or not, on your area of interest, consultant. I mean, I encourage my students to do that. Immediately print yourself a business card for whatever you've done so far in your life. You meet somebody, you hand it, you network, and just kind of move on from there. You gotta have confidence in this thing, and you'll learn a thing or two, because I've seen psychologists run engineering departments, psychologists. I mean, not necessarily a psychologist, but somebody who, they did their master's in psychology, and they were the boss, right? For all these fellows and PhDs, and they did a pretty decent job. So it's a non-linear process sometimes. I mean, it doesn't have to be a straight shot like me, bachelor's, master's, PhD. It can be non-linear. And I have a friend, I mean, he's a big boss in Pennsylvania for a power company. I mean, he didn't finish his degrees like dot. It took him years, and he took his time, and he finally got his bachelor's in electrical engineering. But I mean, he's a well-respected dude, with an MBA now, and so it's non-linear, and life is non-linear, right? level playing field. You know, don't count on any of that stuff. You just use whatever your talents are in the moment and understand that life, it's a real time thing. Life is a real time. Once you get that sense, you're more likely to succeed.
Tracy, I actually have some other, I probably have some other points back.
You can't wait on people. You gotta be the prime mover. It's inside of you. You got everything you need inside of you.
Yeah. So Tracy, I have some other feedback to that question. Probably number one, I would say, ask yourself, and this kind of links back to something Dr. Taylor said when she had said, what is for you, in a way. Ask yourself what you want to do and place that higher than where you want to do it, right? So again, as I pointed out, I work for Northrop, and I'm moving to Utah, and a good chunk of our organization has space-related engineering to be done, and we're about to hire 2,000 engineers in northern Utah. Now, just to be clear, there are not 2,000 engineers in northern Utah, because southern Utah, where they have an area called Silicon Slopes, is sucking up almost every engineer that comes out of school there. So part of what I think that's facing people in this challenge is the job may not be in Southern California, right? The hotbed of space engineering. It may not even be in Huntsville, Alabama. It may be at some small commercial space organization that's doing, bespoke imagery or something like that. And they may be sitting just outside of Ann Arbor. They may be anywhere in the country. So that might be part of the challenge of to say, if I can't work remote, I might need to uproot and think about that. And let's be clear, I'm not pretending that these are costless and impactless decisions that anyone needs to make. But I would say that that's part of it. But then I would immediately hop on what Dr. Taylor and Dr. Quarry were saying, network, right? And Mr. Jacobs, just so you know, Northrop Grumman has a lot of engineers in North Dakota and actually has partnerships with the universities there. So again, I'd love to reach out and be yet another point of contact and information providing to your relatives.
Can you tell us more on what's happening in North Dakota? Why are so many people being hired up there? What's going on up in North Dakota right now? I mean, besides the Black Hills and the that monument that's up there.
I would just sum it up by saying we dig a lot of deep holes in North Dakota to put things in space.
Okay.
I love to add to the conversation though. Like, I think that there is a level of like self-promotion you have to do. So like Dr. Corey was talking about having a business card. You should have a personal website. Like you should probably get your own personal website with your name like in high school so you can start putting your engineering projects, your resumes. Like, I have like 8 resumes depending on what it is. I'm talking about AI, my speaking, my leadership, my management, like depending on what it is, like I have a like very set up like, resume, but like I really want to get into more public speaking and more paid public speaking opportunities. So like setting up a website is really important. When people apply to me for positions right now, they send me their website with all their examples and whatnot. So having a well thought out, planned website, and for that matter, it in our age, it translates into a social media presence as well. Right. So like having like a setup, because you as a person now are a business versus like before, I'm just going to the business. I'm going to Lockheed Martin. That's the business. No, I as a person am a business because I provide blah, 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 blah. And it has to be easy for anyone to access like all the things that I provide.
Yeah, I got a job application from a kid who did exactly that. He basically outlined all his credentials online, even the work that he was currently doing. And to be honest with you, it's actually a good way to do it because these days people think they're going to move someplace, but if I were anybody right now, I would push back on moving anywhere until this COVID thing goes, gets out of the way. Because to be honest with you, people are realizing they don't need these massive buildings anymore to go do stuff, especially, if it's not totally hands-on every single day, you could probably go in every once in a while. I've got friends at GA, for example, they're comfortably working at home. I'm loving it, right? because so people are realizing that this remote working thing is actually quite nice. The best break the workers have ever gotten in 100 years. And not every time you have to travel in traffic to go somewhere. And so seriously, people can actually, young people at any age, older, can actually get engaged by really understanding the internet, the Zoom stuff. I mean, I participated in a conference recently for vertical takeoff and landing because they're really pushing for this flying car. 55,000 people online, greatest record on a Zoom call. And breakout rooms. I'm going to attend a conference in Silicon Valley coming up here in July. Guess what? I don't have to go there. It's virtual, right? And it's cheaper too. I pay about $3.99 versus a fortune in, Semicon West, right? That's one of them. I'm putting a conference on myself. I chair IEEE Computer Society on transputers. That's going to be virtual. I don't have to travel to London to do it. So there's plenty, like Shelby had said, that exists now that did not exist then, that you can take advantage of in the internet space. And so knowing that more is just, a huge advantage. Yeah. So.
All right, so we're coming up on time. What I'd like to do is a speed round. I'd like to give each of the panelists 2 minutes to have a parting shot. What if someone, for any of the participants today, what's the thing you want them to take away? I would say as they drive home, but really what I mean is as they get up and walk to the kitchen after this is over. What's the takeaway that you would want for them? And I'm going to start with you, Dr. Taylor.
I guess the most important thing to me is one that we just had this great panel, and I know I get excited hearing how passionate and all the things people have done before. And we kind of alluded to it, but that representation that we have on this panel isn't something that we see every day, and yet every single person on this panel has done amazing things despite that. So imagine what they can do if they had that representation, and the generations after us have that. So keep that in mind when you, one, normalize that, there's excellence when you see African Americans, and two, that's excellence despite everything. So if you have the power, make sure you work to take away those obstacles, and make sure you work to get rid of the systematic things that are in place. There's no way that Mr. Shelby should have to worry about him not being able to live in a certain place. There's no way that should happen when he's able to do these amazing things. And yet here he is giving us these wow, I did that. I'm like, yo, can I come to San Diego and hang out with you? But there's no way that he should even have to have a conversation about not having a place to live because he wasn't allowed where his work was. So if you have the power, make sure you say, hey, is there anything in your way? And make sure you use that power to get it out of the way, because you see what people have done on this panel despite having those obstacles. So make sure you use your power to everyone's advantage.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Ivor.
Yes, I'm thinking the obstacle issue, especially when it comes to race, and being focused on what it is that you want to do, and not letting circumstance or individual stand in your way. I kind of knew that I wanted to be involved in space somehow from the time I was 13. I was determined if I couldn't be an astronaut, I wanted to be something else. I got a chance to see the World's Fair, and as it would happen in New York, as it would happen, the time that I was there was the time that Stanley Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke were meeting at the World's Fair, creating this new concept that would later become 2001: A Space Odyssey. And I waited in line for 2.5 hours for one exhibit that was a 15-minute ride. And I didn't have a book, there was no internet or cell phone. So I was just kind of daydreaming. And I realized, somebody said, Miss Dr. Taylor, she's good at dreaming. I was a very good dreamer, and I did it during school. I was a fantastic daydreamer.
That is the best time to do it, sir.
Well, yeah.
Best time to do it. No bills, no responsibilities. You better daydream when you went to school.
And in my day, it was Steve Canyon and Captain Midnight. It was the jet pilots on television who were my heroes, and Rocky Jones. And I wanted to be one of those. I wanted to be the black version of those guys. But by my not having anything to do but daydream and letting my mind wander while waiting for this 15-minute ride, that was the genesis of how I execute the Traveling Space Museum. Because everybody said, well, why don't you just bring the bus in and have the kids wait online? And I said, no, we're not going to do that. That's Disneyland. We're going to have 15 different exhibits and have people move around from different things so that they're spending their time learning something different rather than waiting all of that time for the one experience. And I later found out that people like Buffalo Bill Cody and P.T. Barnum, they had thought out these remedies for dealing with long lines 100 years before that World's Fair. So not letting anything stand in your way, finding what it is that you want to do. And like the old adage, if you do what you love for the rest of your life, you'll never work a day, because you do what you would do whether they paid you or not. And the question I get more often than for kids is, how can I get a job like yours? Well, you got to make it. that job doesn't exist. You got to make that job. You got to carve out your own path. And like the other panelists are saying, and just stay the course, stay focused, and stay on it. And if you're lucky, they will pay you to do what you would do for free.
I love it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
I love it. Thank you. Dr. Quarry.
Yeah, I guess I would say I feel blessed too. I've heard from everybody from Shelby all the way up, and my own experiences are not unique. Someday Ivor and I may actually tow around a flying saucer. So the best is still yet to come, always. And so anyway, it's very important that we realize that we're God's creation, right? We've been, just like a droplet being placed on this earth, and our imagination really is what we have with us, and that extends beyond the furthest reaches of space, at least for me. But whether or not you realize it, you're connected to something much bigger beyond. I mean, why is it that you can imagine yourself on Mars instantly, and then imagine yourself a million parsecs away from there the next instant? So we must be connected with something else, and break through any barriers of racism, any isms, and this goes for anybody. And so, we're not, again, our Constitution forbids certain things, and it's kind of like biblical. I mean, you read it all the time that it's the race of a person doesn't matter, and but for some people, they persist to continue living in that realm. And so it's unfortunate, and, but it's very hurtful though. I can tell you that. It's extremely hurtful, and it's hurt a lot of people and killed a lot of people, and are killing a lot of people, men and women. And it's just so unfortunate. It's stupid for one, but it's more than stupid. And so, we all need to, in a battle, I mean, who's there? There's black, brown, right? You're facing the enemy. Institutional racism, right? We're going to lose if we continue to persist in that kind of behavior. And so, I hire a lot of different interns of all different stripes. I help people. I just hired one that's Asian, that's going into, my own daughter, she's going into psychology at UNM. She's already started, actually already the summer here. My son, really good at math, and I'm hoping he'll become an astronaut and land on Mars and create his own spaceships, by the way. So if you can't get there, you can build your own spaceship. I have all kinds of concepts for that, believe me. I even have patents and so forth. So, this thing I think is something that kids need to have from very earlier on, because you won't be accepted by everyone, and even not your own race, right? So, what is race, right? It's like, just think about it. A race can be in run, right? Run. So this concept of race, it's like, you're thinking, geez, one needs to run faster than the other. So we're broken out in all these different races in order to run, right? The thought just occurred to me yesterday, but it's not a concept which is godly in any way. It's just, I think God made us all different colors, shapes, and sizes to see what the heck we would do. So it's our responsibility now to, how do we react to that? And what legacy do we leave on this earth? And so, I've done the best I can. I'm 52 years old, and I'm not going backwards, man. I'm telling you, I'm all the way into space. Thank you.
Love it. All right, Mike Wallace.
Okay, well, parting words, I got 2 minutes. I think everyone else said a lot of great things. I agree with them 110%. But if I have to share something, I remember giving a keynote speech at Cal State Long Beach, graduation for engineers at the Antelope Valley chapter. And one thing that I left them in terms of to have a successful career in engineering, and I want to leave this behind, were the ABCs. That's acquired knowledge. That means as long as you're here on this earth and you're in your profession, continue to learn and grow. That is an ongoing thing. So if you want to be successful in your career as an engineer, doesn't matter if you're African American or anyone else, you should continue to acquire knowledge. The B, I always said, build relationships. You got to continue to build relationships. That's networking. I know people already brought this up. Networking and working with someone to be a mentor. And a mentor should come from all backgrounds, not always in particular to the background that you're in yourself, that you're trying to pursue, but it should come from all backgrounds. And that's what's really important. So networking, key, because that'll help you get jobs, that'll help you move up. Applying for jobs is not the key, going on a website and doing it. Knowing someone will get you to get in that job, and someone can sponsor you and vouch for you. Very important. And the C is communication. You got to be able to be an effective communicator. You got to know how to convey the information you're trying to do in your job, whether you're presenting, because all engineers give presentations. So you got to understand how to do that. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to know how to convey that information to sell your product while you're out there. So try to learn how to communicate. A lot of engineers usually have a tendency to only focus on the science. They're mostly introverts. They're not really outgoing a lot, but you got to know how to communicate. So the ABCs, I think, is a basic formula to apply, and I would just leave everyone with that. Again, to say thank you very much to everyone in the panel. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I wish everyone well in their careers.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Mr. Jacobs.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to go over a couple of things. One of the things that just came to mind was knowledge. Historically, I've heard people encouraging kids to acquire knowledge, go get knowledge, whatever. And I wanted to add to that, as I was hearing there, that we need to focus on the fact that applied knowledge is what makes power. Having a head full of knowledge is useless if you can't apply it. So I help people understand, when I hear people say knowledge is power, I put the word applied knowledge in front of that, so that they know that you have to find a way to creatively apply what you have in your head in order to be successful. And I wanted to go back to my own personal about my background. I grew up in Val Verde Park, we call the Black Palm Springs. You may know about that. I was part of this cheap labor up there. Grew up with an outhouse, without a television or a telephone in my entire childhood. And my father thought everything but reading the Bible and going to church was a sin. So I was concerned as I got into high school whether I was going to be able to compete in anything, because he was so adamant about so many things being classified as a sin. So I was denied access to movies and all kinds of things that people were. So I was like sheltered in a way that I thought I would never get out of it. But God led me to be able to demonstrate to my father by being academically involved in school and athletically that his philosophy was, son, don't make me come up there. In other words, he didn't want to come to school to bail you out of trouble. So if you did well, you didn't hear from him. So I was able to then go through and achieve enough that I was able to develop my self-esteem, self-confidence, to the point where when I took an aptitude test as a senior, I scored very high in math and science, and I was class president in a class of only 3 blacks. And my high school principal, when he learned that I wanted to be an engineer, he immediately said to me, well, Shelby, there are no black engineers. And he recommended that I take a trade. Moments of what I consider to be divine guidance. I did not become angry with him. I did not even distinguish what it is. I concluded that he's telling me that the odds are going to be long, maybe against you, but you can do it in spite of that. So I pursued it on the basis of preparing myself for a door that might open, having the confidence that doors do open. And what happens to most of us, doors open. If we're not prepared, we can't navigate into any system of life. And so I've, from that point on, I've always been inclined to encourage people, young people, about developing marketable skills, defining what you want, and pursue it, and the doors will open, rather than try to open doors before you prepare. Even entrepreneurship, when you're on your own, doing your own thing, all those things are good things. One of the things I wanted to leave you with as a senior citizen, quite often as a black man, when they learn I was involved in Apollo as I was, and I also worked on the shuttle for the balance of my 40 years, they invariably will discuss with me astronauts, because people see astronauts and the preponderance of us, they don't know about us. They don't know that, for example, there were only 32 astronauts on the Apollo program and only 12 of them went to the moon. But the world sees that. And so as a black man, I'm often asked, did I go to the moon? And I say, when I describe to them that engineers were scientists, technicians, and all those, we were the people that put all the systems together, designed and tested all that vehicle that they fly on. So we did not go to the moon, but thanks to Michael Jackson, I can do the moonwalk. So I do a moonwalk demo when I talk to people at 85. I rest my case.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
very much. I love it. Now I got to go practice. To Tracy. Tracy, let's turn it to you.
I have 2 quick things I would leave people with. One, for people like us who work in the space industry, I mean, there's some great examples here. Mike having spent years and years teaching students directly, and Ivor with his traveling museum. I mean, you guys spend way more time reaching out to kids than probably all the rest of us. But I think it's important for all of us to find even small ways to get out in front of and speak to kids. It's just that idea of representation that's been brought up a couple of times already. It's so important, even if it's just dropping in and visiting a school or saying hello to a kid you pass on the sidewalk and making sure you tell them what you do and give them a chance to ask questions. That's really important. And for kids, I would say there's been a lot of really good advice for young people, even people of college age or just starting in their career. The one thing that I lied, 2 things I'd like to leave them with. Number 1, think about what it is that are your core values. What is the actual most important thing to you in life? Is it helping people? Is it learning? Is it exploring? And then when you think about what it is you want to do, make sure it ties into your core values, because otherwise you'll be very unhappy. If you choose a job because it makes the most money, if you choose a job because you heard so-and-so did it and you just want to be like them and you haven't thought about it any more than that, you're not going to be happy. And the last thing I want to say to young people is just enjoy your life while you're living it. Because if you're so busy thinking, well, when I get this job, or when I'm the leader of this company, or when I'm XYZ, it's going to be gone before you even realize that happened. I still look up and go, I'm 40, what now? How did that happen? So enjoy the ride along the way while you're at it.
Love it, love it. Okay, so I guess that that leaves me. And then, but before I give my last bit, I want to say that there's another great video of Shelby, the one that he talked about that the 3 girls did that won the award. There was a link to that put into the chat for this Zoom meeting. Strongly recommend you find that. It's also, you could also just look it up, search for it on YouTube. It's an excellent piece of work done by 3 young women. I'd probably say my takeaway from today is when I saw the name of list of the people who were going to be involved today, I was like, I either know everybody on this list or know of almost everybody on this list. I think the only person I didn't know about, I hadn't heard about, was Shelby. And then I felt really bad. I was like, oh, this was the guy who I needed to know about 40 years ago. But that's beside the point. So then my takeaway, and it's almost an ask for everyone on this call, the next time that you're invited to speak or participate in one of these events or go to a school, I'm going to ask that you take someone with you who's not you. So if you're like me, you're a male person of color, bring a female person of color from a different culture, right? Bring someone else to the conversation, right? So that more people can share in the knowledge, in the wisdom, right? We can be each other's partners. We can be each other's allies. And I tend to think in terms of music. And my takeaway is a line from an Oingo Boingo song called Flesh and Blood. And the line is, I haven't the strength to hold out too long, but if we both hold on together, we can make each other strong, right? And that's what I want to challenge all of us coming out of this. We've had all this great sharing of knowledge, great sharing of wisdom, right? Let's keep these conversations going pairwise with your colleagues, with other professionals, with youth, right? Some of us might be able to make it alone, but probably none of us can. But we can all make it if we all pull together. So with that, let me turn the control back over to you, Ken, and thank everyone for participating in today's event.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Stephanie, like, you did a really amazing job moderating this and like setting us all together. So thank you. This was actually really, really well done, and definitely appreciate your time and effort for all of us. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. This is wonderful, just amazing, and really appreciate all the panelists, speakers. This is amazing event, and just certainly, appreciate you all and all the contribution and accomplishment by the community of African American professionals, and so this is really our great honor, and to work with you. Yeah, we'll keep working with you and stay in touch. If anything you need or we can do more events or whatever you like, we'll certainly support you. And don't know what to say more. Is really highly honored to have you all, and I really appreciate this very unique opportunity. So also thank all the audiences, and so for your participation, and please stay tuned with AIAA Los Angeles Las Vegas section. Okay, with that, thank you everyone. So really appreciate it. Yeah, enjoy the rest of the day and the weekend.
Good night.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.